What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining us on this Tuesday night. It is May 28th, 2024. I am your host, JD from New York, as always, joined by my very good friend and co-host on Tuesday nights, the Solid Monster. We are the Tuesday Night Titans. Episode number 50 in the books, guys. Jason, what's going on, my friend?
Are you tired? Are you ready for another show?
Man,
I don't think we've done enough.
Tired, man. I can't even keep my eyes open. Honestly, I'm lucky. I'm even sitting in this chair right now.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I'm surprised that you're sitting upright. I feel the same way. It's been a very busy weekend.
Listen, man. There's a lore going around the community, man. I don't know if my watch is off, my iPhone's all messed up. There may be still an event going on at the MGM Grand Arena.
You know what? I've heard the same thing. I can't confirm it because I'm not there, but I tapped out after hour number 8, so I can't say for sure.
Oh man, sure. Listen, man.
Although,
if anybody
hold on. It's not just the event at the MGM Grand. I'm also being told. I mean, again, this is from my sources here that Braun Strowman is still running. I don't think he stopped yet. He was running for 3 hours last night, and he's still going.
Well, to be fair, I would rather forget that. It's not that bad. I would rather take another 5.5-hour pay-per-view than watch Braun Strowman run like a clown. But we will get into Mr. Strowman and the Strowman Express. I'm sure Monday Night Raw will be brought up. But thank you guys very much for joining us in episode 50, man. It's been quite the ride for 50 episodes here. It started out as an idea several years ago with my buddy, Mr. Andrew Baydala. It became a thing for 43 episodes, and then he had to step away, and in comes a couple of good friends of mine, a couple of good friends of Jason's in the community for a couple of shows, and then the man that you see here is sitting beside me, which I'm very pleased to see on a weekly basis. Man, how you feeling about this week as far as what we've seen, man? I know there's been a lot of ups and downs. I know we just celebrated 5 years of AEW. I guess we'll get right into it, man. We'll save all the bullshit for later on in the show. You guys know where to find us. I'm going to leave it off with you, brother. What do you want to talk about? What was your biggest takeaway from this weekend?
Well, before we get into the big takeaways, the first thing I want to do, I want to give a shout out to two people who are both big fans of what we do, your content and my content. I got an email, which I shared with you, from Adrian in Australia the other night. He just lost his father, unfortunately. So, again, to him, my condolences. I'm sure JD extends his condolences as well. But he included a photo. He was sitting in the hospital in the cafeteria, and he had his, I don't know if it was his tablet or his laptop in front of him, and he was watching the last episode of TNT.
Yep.
Just to try to take his mind off things, and obviously that's a very heavy situation. So I wanted to shout him out first, let him know that we're thinking about him. We appreciate the support and all the love to him. And then Benjamin, who I believe did a drive-by on your stream yesterday.
Yes, he did. Benjamin left us some very heartfelt messages in the stream last night, and we wish him nothing but the best. He's in the hospital right now, and all the love, thoughts, and prayers from both the Sound Off family and the OTS family head into Benjamin's way.
Absolutely, yes. Now, he's going through some stuff right now, but I'm sure everything's going to work out well, and I'm sure he's tuned in. So you're going to have a hell of a show tonight. As far as the stories, I mean, my thought was we should just get into this top story from today that broke earlier about the Warner Brothers Discovery AEW situation. If you're okay with that, I think we ought to just dive right into that.
That's fine by me. I know this may ruffle a couple of feathers out there from the quote unquote elitists, but I mean, listen, man, you got two of the most honest guys here, man. We're not gonna bullshit you. So Jason's going to start us off with this report about Tony Khan being disappointed from a current offer from Warner Brothers Discovery. On top of what Jason's about to tell you guys, to start us off with, Brandon Thurston had a lot to say. I got his tweets fired up here, and then Meltzer just put out something about a couple of hours ago. So we'll start off with the AEW discussion. Jason, it's all yours.
Yeah, so we had a report that was put out by a Matt Baloney. Now, for those, and that's not the meat, the sandwich meat. It's B-E, before people start going, oh, he said Baloney. Matt Baloney, he's very plugged into the media landscape. He's considered to be a Hollywood insider. I've seen, his name pop up in quite a number of stories. So it's not like he's some fly-by-night guy that nobody knows. He's got sources and he's pretty well plugged in. Even Mark Shapiro, who's the president of Endeavor, which owns WWE and TKO, subscribes to this guy's newsletter. He's called it like his religion that, he tunes into every week. He had a report in Puck, which is a media news website. And it concerned the exclusive window that AEW was still in for another probably month and a half or so with Warner Brothers Discovery. And I'll just read to you here from his report, because this has been a big story. I know JD's touched on it. I've touched on it on my channel. This will be the biggest story of 2024 when it comes to All Elite Wrestling. So it has a lot of significance for the company, not only in the short term, but in the long term as well. But this is what he said on the website Puck. He said, I'm told the exclusive window closes in July. This is for negotiations. Ends in July. And AEW leader Tony Khan is said to be disappointed with the offer currently on the table. Khan also surely knows that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, losing the NBA would give AEW more leverage, even though the money to re-up AEW is a mere drop in the NBA bucket. If the window closes without a deal, others could swoop in for those rights, as Comcast has done with the NBA. He said extra awkward because Warner Brothers Discovery is said to own a stake in the league. Now, I don't know that that's ever been confirmed. I mean, that's been something that's been, kind of murmured about for a number of years, that Warner Brothers Discovery may have a stake in AEW. I mean, I assume you've read similar things. But he says, I'm not sure how alluring AEW would be to another platform, especially since only non-WWE partners could bid. But the wrestling shows still do okay on the Turner networks. It's reliable programming, and a rival suitor could further push Zaslav into hot water in his cable carriage deals. For now, though, both sides are playing nice. Last night, after the league's Double or Nothing pay-per-view event, and he says, yes, I watch pro wrestling press conferences now. Khan said, I'm happy working for Mr. David Zaslav, and I'm hoping that we can do it for a long time. Now, JD mentioned that Dave Meltzer had an update on this late in the day, and so he has a report out saying that AEW is denying the story from Puck.
Of course they are.
That the first offer made by Warner Brothers Discovery was disappointing. According to Meltzer, AEW sources have told him that the first offer was not disappointing to Tony Khan, but that the two sides have yet to reach any deal. So, little bit of an interesting twist on this ongoing story. Let me give you my thought first. I think that this is much ado about nothing right now. I really don't think that we can read too much into any of this stuff. Tony Khan has been very coy. He won't give much in the way of details out, when it comes to this stuff, but everything is always very happy and very positive. Oh, we have a great relationship with them. Things are going great. Everything's great. You're great. I'm great. Everybody's great. So you can't really read anything from that, because he doesn't, he's Mr. Positivity. I've been saying that I don't see AEW leaving Warner Brothers Discovery. I think that they are valuable enough that Warner Brothers would want to keep them, but not necessarily for the amount of money that Tony Khan might want to get out of them. My opinion hasn't changed in light of this report. Now, is he disappointed in their initial offer? Is it possible that he's disappointed? Yeah, I mean, it's possible that they floated an offer to him and he's hoping to get more money out of it. I can believe that. Do I think that the sky is falling and they're going to hit the end of this window and they're going to let it expire and they're not going to have any place to go? Again, I don't look at this as any kind of doomsday scenario yet for AEW. I think there's a lot of give and take going on. I think, again, they're in a negotiating period. So they may go back and forth. They may have some give and take. But I already see people saying, because the ratings are down, which they are. The ratings are down from where they were a year ago. This is a sign that Warner Brothers Discovery is not going to want to keep AEW. I don't know how you feel about this. I still fall in the camp of the NBA situation. And for those who haven't been following it, the NBA is very likely gone from Warner Brothers Discovery. So this is going to be the last season coming up of Inside the NBA, and it's going to be the end of an era because they've been on there for a very long time. If they lose the NBA, I see it as a situation where AEW becomes more valuable. but that doesn't mean that they're going to get NBA money. There's no chance of course not. There's no chance of that happening. And if they lose the NBA, they're in for a world of hurt because, again, the fee that they charge, the cable carriers, they're not going to be able to charge the same amount of money. AEW is not on the level of the NBA. But I still feel like they can get more money, just not what I would call fuck you money. But they'll get more money, and I think that they end up staying with them. And I still feel the same way about that.
Well, let me ask you, because as you read all that, I'm thinking to myself here, and we discussed this, whether it was last week or the week before that, I posed the question. I'm not really a guy that dives deep into this side of the business. I'm more of a creative aspect. Jason's a little bit more knowledgeable in this type of thing. My first question was, everybody seems to have this misconception that, the NBA is going to NBC. Warner Brothers and Zaslav are going to have all this money to just throw at AEW. All the money that they were going to spend on the NBA, they could give to Tony Khan. No, it doesn't work that way.
It's not. And by the way, and they're not going to have all that money, by the way, because of what I just said. If they are not able to charge the same amount of money for ads, if they're not charging the same amount of money for access to TNT and TBS, the money will not be there. So that's just flat out wrong.
So my question to you is, what's Tony Khan's best course of action here? Because do I believe that he's disappointed with an initial offer? I do. I don't think it's really much of anything like you said. I do think that he's disappointed because if you guys go back to several years ago when this was even a discussion, Tony Khan was definitely adamant about packaging AEW on a streaming service and Ring of Honor, shopping Ring of Honor around. He wants Ring of Honor to be a part of that deal. By hook or by crook. I don't know what Warner Brothers Discovery's feeling is on Ring of Honor. In my honest and genuine opinion, I think Ring of Honor is fucking worthless.
Yeah, I don't think they want to. If they wanted Ring of Honor, they would have had a deal in place for Ring of Honor already.
So is it best for Tony Khan right now if he remains disappointed? I do think he wants to remain with Warner. I do think Warner still wants to maintain AEW. But would it be best if Tony Khan actually lets this window, I believe it's up in July, to lapse, and then have other people bid on AEW so that Zaslav says, you know what, maybe we'll get into a bidding war with these people and then it'll up the ante for AEW and the overall price for AEW? Is that their best course of action here?
You know, I'm not sure that it is, because I'm not sure what kind of bidding war he's going to get. It's a risk. I mean, this is what he has to weigh here. He's very glowing every time he talks about the relationship with Warner. He's very lucky to have his shows on TNT and TBS because they still have a lot of visibility. I mean, look, you look at Impact, you look at some of these other promotions, MLW, and some of the networks they've been on. They have no visibility. You know, Lucha Underground, you want to go back to El Rey Network. That's the problem with most wrestling companies over the last 20 years since WCW died. They will get television in some cases, but with the exception of when TNA was on Spike many years ago, the visibility is shit. It's just not there, and you can't really build an audience, a big audience, on those channels. Does he run the risk of letting the window lapse and saying, you know what, like you just said, we're going to pit, you know, these guys against them and let them drive up the price? He can try that, but it's a big risk because I don't know that there will be much of an incentive for them to have a bidding war. You know, they may want to keep AEW, but they may not want to keep them that much. So if I were him, now the thing is, you and I don't know what are part of these conversations that they're having. Streaming should be a component of it. I think we're in agreement on that.
Yes.
I mean, there definitely should be a streaming component. Tony Khan has said he wants to have a streaming deal with them. I think it would be fantastic for AEW to get their library up on Max, to have the pay-per-views on Max. They could have Max exclusive content. I think all of that makes sense. We just don't know if it's part of the conversations or not. Maybe that's why he's supposedly disappointed. Maybe it's not just a money thing. Maybe it has something to do with the streaming element. If I'm him, I'm doing everything in my power to make a deal before this window expires. And again, if it was a WWE, I would have a very different opinion because I think WWE content would be more sought after. WWE, I think, would have some pretty big players that want after them, as we saw with Raw and SmackDown. You know, Raw's going to Netflix next year. They could have tried going to Amazon and Disney and these different players, and I'm sure some of them would have been interested. I don't know that level of interest exists for AEW, and if they lose this deal, this would be catastrophic for them. I don't want to say that it would be a death knell. I think they would land somewhere. But Tony Khan can't support the roster that he has right now and everything he is spending money on to loop Final Countdown at Double or Nothing the other night. I mean, the things that he's spending money on, he can't afford to do it if he doesn't have this money coming in. So it's a risky thing. I think it would be in his best interest to make a deal before this window is up.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't want to make things about ratings. I've given up talking about the ratings on my end and the viewership that AEW has obviously looked at and we have looked at. If you're a realist and you guys aren't one of these fucking elitists online that just don't see, what's right in front of them, they want to pretend everything is sunshine and rainbows and they're skipping through the fucking flower field. It's not like that. Honestly, Jason and I both love AEW. I love AEW. I want them to succeed. I want to see the company flourish. I think you have talked about it several times, Jason. I've talked about it several times. Tony Khan does not want to have it come to a decision where he's firing people because that goes against what the overall vision of AEW was. In my honest opinion, they labeled themselves as the alternative. This was the safe space for pro wrestlers to come and feel like they are at home. And Tony Khan does not want to start having the cracks show, and then he ends up like WWE and he starts firing 50, 60 people because he needs to shed payroll. He doesn't want that to happen. But the realist in me is looking at the ratings and saying, all right, we're looking at this Tony Khan angle, and the interest is not up. They're doing anywhere between 680 and 720,000 viewers weekly. It's not generating any new viewership. You go look at AEW Dynamite and what they were doing last year, they were about 800 to 820,000 viewers. Now, clearly, it's a different era, and people that are there then are no longer here now. But I look at that, and then I mix that with just look at the attendance for Double or Nothing. And I don't want to sit here, and I don't want to, pour more fuel on the gasoline, but I got to be straight up and honest with everybody. I mentioned this on my end, too. I seen some people tweeting, AEW's got a great crowd for Double or Nothing. Really? They got a great crowd. 2 years ago, granted, Punk was in the main event. They drew 14,500 at MGM Grand. Last year, for a fatal four-way between the all four pillars, MJF, Darby, Sammy, and Jungle Boy, they did about 11,000. Jason, this year, they go into the same building, same event, celebrating 5 years, which is a bigger deal, and they did less than 8,000 people, roughly around 7,500 people. If that's not a fucking issue, and if you don't think Warner Brothers is looking at that and those statistics, I don't know what to tell you. So for everybody thinking, Punk mentioned one Bill Phil when he was back with the company, and they're going to get a big deal. Remember, we were talking about $1 billion, $800 million. They're not getting anywhere close to $800 million. If I was to make a rough guesstimation, I'd say they get about $150 million over 5 years. They'll make enough. They'll get enough from Warner Brothers to where they're in the green. But I don't think it's going to be enough to blow everybody away, and Tony Khan continues to sign all the biggest free agents in the industry. I don't think it's going to come to that. I mean, they'll get something to sustain themselves, and that's about it, barely.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be higher than that. I mean, if what you just said ends up being accurate, I don't see that as being a good thing, because the rumor at the time when they made the initial deal, I think it was either a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th year. I think that's what it was, and not 4 and 5. I believe that was supposedly for $175 million over either 3 or 4 years. So to get $150 million over 5 would be quite the downgrade. I think they could do better than that. I hate throwing numbers out there. We're talking about the NBA, and supposedly it's going to NBC, I think, for 2.5 or 2.6 billion, which, again, David Zaslav apparently does not want to match that offer, and that could end up being messy. They're talking about maybe, they may take the NBA to court. I don't know how well that's going to end up playing out as far as legally is concerned. But AEW, in a perfect world, they would be able to at least double, what they're getting now. And if they double it, they're not getting $1 billion still. So to me, that's reasonable for the amount of content they're producing. And then maybe Warner Brothers wants them to produce even more content. Like I said, there could be Max exclusive content if there's a streaming component to it. The thing that makes AEW, I think, attractive is it's something they can plug in on their networks and fill time, and it still does reasonably well. you'll have spikes in the ratings, and then you'll have weeks where the ratings fall off a cliff. And I'm not even talking about Rampage, because to me, Rampage is fucking useless. So, I mean, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's another hour to fill. I'm talking Dynamite, and I'm talking Collision. It still does reasonably well for them. You know, when these reports come out that Warner Brothers Discovery is actually happy with the ratings this past week, even when they go down a little bit, I can believe that, because whatever metrics they're looking at, whatever demos they're looking at, they may be looking at something that you and I are not looking at, and they're happy enough with it. And they put press releases out to tout it and announce it. So the best case scenario, they can maybe double or triple what they're getting now over a long period of time. 4-year deal, 5-year deal. I think for their own security, they want to have something locked in where they know their future is secure. And it's one less thing that they need to worry about. Okay, we have our home for the next 5 years. We're locked in. We're going to get ourselves $300, $400 million. Again, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the money we're talking about here with the NBA. They don't need astronomical NBA money. They just need enough money to be able to pay their people and to be able to do all the things they're doing now and be competitive with WWE when it comes to the talent pool. They brought in people like Mercedes and Okada and Adam Copeland and so on because they can be competitive and bring in the big names. That's all they really need. If they can get that financial security and they can get that long-term deal, if you're an AEW fan, I think that's all you can ask for. And I don't think that's unreasonable. And I do think that they're going to end up making a deal like that. And I think that would be the best thing for everybody, because the last thing we need is for, AEW to go the way of so many other promotions that came before it. Like you said, 5 years of AEW this weekend. There's a lot to look back on and like, and they certainly have their problems. Tony Khan has his problems in terms of booking and creative, and, I'm sure both of us have talked about that ad nauseum. But there's a lot of good that this company has done, and I would hate for anything to happen that would not make them go away, because I don't think they're going away, but to hurt them and harm them in some way. And like you said, they had to cut a whole bunch of people, and they can't spend the kind of money that they've been spending. I don't want to go back to those days where we only had one company that can really do that. We need at least two. And I think if you're a wrestling fan, if you're hoping for anything other than that, then you're not really a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I agree completely on that. But Brandon Thurston, he added this and said that there could be several other suitors for AEW. Now, it's not likely, but he also put into context that CW and Netflix a year ago were not suitors, or nobody believed them to be suitors for professional wrestling. And now here we are. CW is getting NXT, and Netflix obviously now is the home of Monday Night Raw. He says, I think AEW domestic rights could end up split between Warner Brothers Discovery and another media partner, or more than two partners even. The likeliest bidders besides Warner Brothers Discovery seems to be Fox, maybe for FS1, and Amazon Prime Video. Or maybe someone else will come out of left field. Nobody expected Netflix and CW to be wrestling broadcasters a year ago, or considering the likely loss of the NBA, maybe Warner Brothers Discovery will make sufficient offers to all AEW rights sometime just before the exclusive window closes. Again, like we said, Jason feels like if Tony Khan wants to go and negotiate with somebody else and then come back and see if Warner Brothers Discovery is going to get into a bidding war with somebody, it's going to be a risky move. So we don't really know what to think, but at the end of the day, Tony Khan, he said something, because I watched the scrum on Sunday night. He said that he was very pleased with the way the discussions were going, and that a great deal is looming for AEW. But Tony Khan is a businessman. He's not going to show any sort of weakness to any of the media or any of the people online, because that's not what he needs to do at this point with everything else that's going on in AEW that people are picking apart. But I do think that at some point he is a bullshit artist. I mean, he's a wrestling promoter. He's a CEO. Of course he's a bullshit artist. But at the end of the day, I want Tony Khan to be in a position where he's making the best deal for his company, because like Jason said, whether you like AEW or not, they need to exist. I mean, for Christ's sakes, I've said this countless times, and people look at me like I got 6 fucking heads. Without Tony Khan, where are we in pro wrestling? I don't even want to think about where we are with AEW. Cody Rhodes is not in WWE the way you see him now without Tony Khan. CM Punk is still at home in his condo with his beautiful wife watching the fucking Blackhawks in Chicago. He's not pro wrestling. That's just the way I feel about it. With Tony Khan in the picture, he brought CM Punk back to professional wrestling. He ended up in AEW. It ended up being a nightmare, but I don't think he ends up back in WWE without Tony Khan.
No.
And there are several other reasons that we could sit here and say. And another one that just jumps off the page to me is Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland was fired from WWE wrongfully because Vince and a certain administration didn't get him. Now here he is, and he proved himself, and now he's a world champion. Where would he be without AEW? We might not have a Swerve Strickland.
Where would someone like Samoa Joe be? Samoa Joe, you mentioned that Swerve got fired from WWE. Samoa Joe got fired twice by WWE.
Yes.
Tony Khan brought him in, and Samoa Joe, whatever they give him, he knocks it out of the park. I mean, he had a career resurgence there for a while. Even before he won the world title, he was TNT champion. I fucking love Joe. And I think the way that they completely mishandled him and then they kind of cast him aside was just garbage. So he goes to AEW, and he's been doing some good stuff. Sting. We just had Sting's retirement at Revolution. They were able to, they had 16,000 people there at the Greensboro Coliseum. So Sting was a draw right up until the very last day. I don't think I have ever seen a legend brought into a company, WWE or anywhere else that I can think of, where the promoter used them as well as Tony Khan used Sting. I know some people were upset that, he didn't put anybody over. He won all of his matches. How is that a positive? That's not why he brought Sting in. I'm sorry to break the news to you. Tony Khan has hired a lot of other guys who can go out there and they can work with younger talent and put them over. He brought Sting in because he was a fan, because he's a mark like the rest of us, and he grew up watching Sting, and he didn't like the way that Sting's career came to an end unceremoniously. Neither did I. He came in and he had the chance to write his final chapter the way that he wanted to. And the pairing with Darby Allin was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And then he got the send-off. How many wrestlers get the kind of send-off that Sting has, right? So kudos to Tony Khan for that, because he treated Sting with respect. He was able to, book out this final storyline for him, and he had that amazing send-off with his sons at Revolution. So again, we could sit here all day and go through all of the different positive things from AEW over the last 5 years, because for whatever bad there may be, there's a lot of good.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they need to be healthy so they can bring in people and they can stay competitive. Competition is a good thing. I always say it. I've always said that. Competition is a great thing for the fans, and it's a great thing, maybe greater, for the talent.
Yeah. And I'm gonna throw another one at you, just and then we'll move on. AEW Dark. A lot of people don't really look at this and say, "Oh man, what is he talking about? I think he's wrong. They're wrong." AEW Dark, back during the pandemic era, was the most important pro wrestling show on television. It was more important than Raw. It was more important than SmackDown. It was more important than NXT. It was more important than anything AEW else was doing in and around the company. AEW Dark was the home for a lot of independent pro wrestling talent that don't have, a spot on a television show where they could appear weekly and Vince could fucking break the bylaws because he could work out of a performance center and put on weekly television. They didn't have that. And AEW Dark gave all of these performers, a lot of House of Glory talent too, by the way, a spot to go and work and stay up to date and stay in shape and get the reps in and wrestle because the pandemic shut the world down. A lot of people don't really give AEW Dark the credit that it deserves too. I didn't watch it, but in those early stages when we had nothing else, where the fuck do you think I was? Sitting in my chair watching Dark on YouTube. A lot of people don't really understand that either. We can mention the MJF dynamic too. With that, obviously he came from MLW and other independent scenes. Without Tony Khan, do you think that MJF going directly to WWE would give us the MJF that we see now? Absolutely fucking not. So I don't know. For everybody listen, Jason and I have been very, very critical about AEW, and rightfully so, because we fucking care. But if you don't think that this company needs to exist, and you are one of these people that think it should die or wants it to die, please, guys, go touch some grass. Go get a fucking hobby. Really. You know absolutely jack shit. And that's all I have to say there. I hate this discussion. I really do, because the people just make me pissed off. It's stupid.
Yeah, no, it's stupid. And just to put a button on the TV stuff, I'll say this. They are still in the negotiation window, and so both sides negotiate. So we can sit here and talk about how we think it's going to end or how it's not going to end. If July is when the window lapses, then that gives them a month or more to have discussions. And there's probably going to be more discussions. There's probably going to be more offers going back and forth. This is all normal, standard stuff. So anybody who is jumping the gun and saying, oh, this is awful news for AEW and the sky is falling, are not dealing in good faith, because they still have time to get a deal done. This is completely normal stuff. I don't know, again, whether or not that information was given to Mr. Baloney by somebody because he's friends with Nick Khan or whatever. I mean, look, we go back to the Pizzagate thing, okay? That was a whole big thing when Nick Gage wrestled Chris Jericho on Dynamite. And you know what I'm talking about. And he had the pizza cutter. And supposedly, and there were things that came out, that WWE was reaching out to media and pitching the story that, oh, you know, AEW sponsors are very upset over what happened. Do I believe the WWE does stuff like that? You fucking bet they do. Of course I believe that. Did they do it in that instance? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But I wouldn't put it past them to, feed information like that. So you can never be completely sure. But to me, it's still very premature to make any kind of judgment one way or the other. They're negotiating. That's what you do during a negotiation period, is you talk, you make offers, and we'll see what ends up happening. But my money is still on AEW staying right where they are. They get more money, not an astronomical amount, but if they get more money, they sign a 3 to 5 year deal, then I think they're golden.
Yes. And if you're listening to this, or you catch a wind of this, man, go get your bag, bro, and then hire a creative writer on the side, please. That's all I care. Jason, we got some breaking news here. Apparently the chat is yelling at us to look at the chat. Apparently Jordan Grace versus Roxanne Perez is taking place at the next NXT PLE.
Wow.
There's a TNA and NXT partnership going on. So I don't know how far that extends, but I know Roxanne Perez was rumored to be wrestling Julia, which is definitely going to still be the case, but Jordan Grace is quite the substitute there, and she is fantastic.
Well, not even a substitute. I mean, they have their Battleground event would be their next event. I think that's from the UFC Apex, but the rumors about Julia is for Heatwave.
Yeah.
And that's for July. So, and again, she just had surgery, and whether or not she'll even be ready to wrestle by then, I don't know. She had a fractured wrist. But conceivably, it could be back-to-back. I mean, you can get Jordan Grace in a few weeks, and then you could still get Julia in July. I know that a lot of people were very impressed. There were reports at the time after she appeared in the Royal Rumble, because Jordan Grace looked fantastic in the Royal Rumble. I thought she looked better than any of the WWE women. And she was in there, and she looked like she belonged. She didn't look out of place or anything like that. And apparently they were very impressed with her, but I think she's under a long-term deal, supposedly, with TNA. But that's great news. And that's the sort of thing that I want to see more of. And by the way, to go back to what we were just talking about, we don't see stuff like that if it's not for AEW.
Yes.
Because things like Forbidden Door and Tony Khan forging all these relationships, whether it's with, CMLL or AAA or New Japan or Stardom, WWE doesn't do this sort of thing if AEW isn't doing it first. So there you go.
Absolutely. 100% correct. Triple H was always more open to working with people and other promotions more so than Vince McMahon, but the reason why Triple H wants to do it more so now is because Tony Khan has got his hand in several different cookie jars. So if you don't think that's the case, I don't know what to tell you. So Jordan Grace, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and I think also there's maybe this attitude of, well, whatever they can do, we can blow it up and do it even better than them.
Of course. That's
we'll show them.
It's definitely the way he thinks. So Jordan Grace is definitely going to NXT to wrestle Roxanne. I'm sure we individually will talk about that on our platforms. That's breaking news right now. We don't know what that entails, how long she's going to be there, what the details are about that. I'm sure Mr. Sapp will put something out by the end of the night. Jason, I guess we should keep with the AEW momentum here. Let's shift gears to Adam Copeland, because this was news today. And Adam Copeland wrestled Malachi Black in a barbed wire steel cage match on Sunday night, which was one of my highlights of the entire show. I thought the match was great. I thought the barbed wire steel cage match lived up to the billing. There was a lot of blood, as per usual for an AEW pay-per-view. But there was one spot in particular where I vividly remember I was sitting on the edge of my couch reaching for a beverage, and I looked up and I said to myself, please don't die, as he's scaling the cage and he's looking down at Malachi laying on a table. And he comes off the steel cage, does Adam Copeland, and he jumps in a way where he's almost jumping into a pool of water. Now, I thought he was going to do a flat-chested, big splash off the rope. I said on my stream on Monday afternoon, it looked like he kind of abandoned ship and realized maybe I shouldn't be doing this. He jumped anyway just because he had to and realized that halfway through, I don't want to fucking do this. And he came down very wicked, and surprisingly, he finished the match. He retains the championship, and we come to find out today from the man himself on social media that he will be out for an extended period of time with a fractured tibia. Now, I don't know how you reacted when you saw the spots. I didn't get a chance to listen to your Double or Nothing post show yet, but how did you react to this spot, man? And what was your initial thought seeing a 50-year-old Adam Copeland, who we love dearly, up there jumping onto Malachi at the pay-per-view?
Yeah, and the whole thing is just sad more than anything else because Adam Copeland seems like he is genuinely having the time of his life in AEW. I mean, he's always got a smile on his face. He's always, a big cheerleader for the company. And
his body of work has been great.
His body of work has been largely great, and he's been very active, more active than he was during his last run in WWE. He's been wrestling almost weekly on television, and I thought he was having a very good run as TNT champion. So as soon as I saw him wrapping Malachi Black in barbed wire, and then I saw him climbing the cage, he wasn't even at the top of the cage, and I already knew. I said, this is stupid. There's no good way this ends. Because either he's going to come down on this guy, and I hope he doesn't sever an artery or something, because this guy's wrapped in barbed wire, number one. Or if, again, he lands the wrong way, anything can go wrong when you're standing on top of the cage anyway. And that cage, by the way, is fucking high. Yeah. I don't know how tall it was. It was at least 15 feet, maybe more. I don't know. Their cages are absurdly high. So he's up there. It would have been dangerous for a man half his age to do what he did. And as soon as he came down, he came feet first. I thought he broke both his ankles. That was my first thought. It hurt my knees watching him do that. I thought that it was very dumb. You think to yourself, well, the adrenaline can get you to do stupid things sometimes, and I'm sure the adrenaline was flowing, but I'm sure he pre-planned this. Like, he had to know in advance, I'm going to do this. Why don't we do this? I'll put you on a table, and then I'll climb to the top and dive off. Like, there had to be some forethought put into this.
Yes.
And I just think it was incredibly dumb also because, as PW Insider said today, he has been a mentor in many ways to different people behind the scenes. Like, he's very well liked. He's always available for advice and counsel, and he's just a good person to have around the locker room. And they feel like it's going to be a huge void now without him there for a number of months. But as somebody in his position like that, who is obviously well respected, they look to him for advice, you got to lead by example. And I feel like you can't be doing stupid shit like that that's going to rub off on maybe some young, impressionable talents who are like, oh my God, well, if he's doing that at 50 years old, then, what can I do? And what can I be thinking of doing? If anything, he doesn't need to do it to get over because he's already over. And he knows better. So the fact that he went up there, look, I respect the fact that he's willing to put his body on the line in that way. But I also think on the other hand, like, he knows that he doesn't have to do it, but he does it anyway. And I wish he wouldn't. Yeah. I wish it would swing the other way where it's like, hey guys, look, you don't have to be doing stuff like that, and here's why, because he has so much advice and wisdom, I'm sure, that he can give these people, where you could just go in there and have a wrestling match and have a great match and have the crowd on their feet and not have to do stupid shit like that. Like, it was scary as all hell. And as soon as he landed, I said, there's no way he's coming out of this unscathed. When the match was over, and credit to him, he finished the match. The match wasn't over at that point, which is the other reason why I thought it was stupid. You do a spot like that, it's not the finish. So the match goes on, and it's over, and he's limping badly. Like, Gangrel's looking at him like, are you okay, dude? And I could tell right away something was wrong. I was hoping it wasn't an Achilles. He blew his Achilles out many years ago.
Yep.
Doing a leapfrog. He just did an interview with Chris Van Vliet, right? Great interview. And they talked in the interview about that match with Matt Hardy. They had that cage match back in 2005 where Matt dove from the top of the cage and he did a leg drop onto Edge. And Matt fucked himself up doing that. Like his hips and everything. I mean, to this day, he doesn't walk right.
No.
So when I say he should know better, he should know better. And now, because of one dumb decision, he's going to miss Wembley Stadium this year. He wasn't there last year because he debuted after that show. So now he's going to miss Wembley this year.
He's going to miss Forbidden Door, which I'm sure he wanted to wrestle somebody from Japan.
And that TNT title run that he was on, which I thought was very good, my assumption and my hope was that when he finally dropped the title, it would be him putting over, a younger star, maybe a homegrown AEW star, someone like that. Now he can't even do that because I'm sure tomorrow night we're going to find out that the title is vacated. Hopefully they don't do this interim title nonsense that Tony Khan has done before. So it's kind of a waste, that a run like that comes to an end in that way. So it's a sad situation, but it's also aggravating to me as a fan. And I took a lot of shit because I posted on Twitter that night about just how insanely stupid it was. And I got attacked by so many people, like you said, the elitist. I got so many messages, mind your own business, it's not your knees. He knows what he's doing. He's fine. He knows what he's doing. Really? Really? He knows what he's doing. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The reaction that got, instead of concern for him, hoping he's all right and hoping don't do stuff like that. It's like, oh, it's great. You're just being a hater. No, I'm being concerned for somebody who, I've been watching for a very long time, and he's 50 years old with a history of injuries, and I'd like to see him finish his career in the way that he wants and not fucking kill himself. But I mean, hey, fuck me, I guess, right?
It's the
being
same.
Concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, people are ridiculous. I mean, it's the same way when I watch Bryan Danielson come off the top rope. I mean, I fucking my heart skips a beat every time he's fucking landing on his head. Or Big E when he was fucking active, doing a dive through the fucking ropes the way he used to. I'm like, is he gonna kill himself? Adam Page going up and doing that acai moonsault that he does. Every time he comes down, I feel like he's gonna fucking tear a ligament. Like, it's
Charlotte
okay.
Flair doing any moonsault.
If you want to call it that, sure. I mean, it's okay to feel that way. But Jason, I'm thinking back to you talking about how you were watching the Copeland dive off the cage. And I'm thinking back to last year WrestleMania. He wrestled Finn Balor at WrestleMania inside a Hell in a Cell. Very similar ambiance, very similar feel. He came out to Slayer's South of Heaven then. He did the same thing here, another fucking song that Tony Khan paid the rights to. He comes out very similar to what he did against Balor. His feud with Malachi, very similar to what he was doing with Rollins. We got the bloodbath with Rollins. We got the bloodbath with Malachi. My question to you is, because this is what I was thinking while I was assessing this terrible story today, when does it end? Or I should say, where does it need to start with AEW management, the producers, the agents, stepping in here and telling Copeland, bro, listen, we love you. You can go out there and do whatever you want, but I think we as a team here are going to advise you not to go and do that. And Tony Khan to step in and say, listen, Cope, we love you. We're so happy you're here. I don't think that this is in your best interests to go and do that. You know how much they're paying him? I'm sure they're paying him fucking a hefty price tag, and now he's going to miss 6, 7, 8 months of action, depending on how his recovery is with his age, 50 years old. When does the management team step in and say, enough is enough with this shit? They allowed him to go out there and do that. It's almost as if the talent has free reign to go out there and do whatever the fuck they want. And the management team says, all right, whatever. I don't care.
Well, you say the management team, you may as well just say Tony Khan.
I guess, yeah, Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, management team. I mean, it's Tony Khan, ultimately. The buck stops with him. It's Tony, and Tony. I don't have a lot of faith. Sting went out there and did these crazy dives, and everybody was like, oh, my God, he's like the modern-day Terry Funk. And he ended up being okay, but Sting should not have been out there doing half the shit that he was doing. Darby Allin. The glass spot at Revolution. One of the stupidest fucking things I've ever seen. Did he know about that? If so, I'm sure Tony Khan knew, because they took whatever precautions that they took. Would I have allowed something like that? No, because it's insanely stupid and it's unnecessary, and it could have detracted from what was really Sting's night. It wasn't his night, it was Sting's night. But look at the shit that Darby does in every single match. And nothing is done. These guys, it's nice to have freedom. It's nice to have a certain freedom that they probably wouldn't have, elsewhere. And that might have made AEW the more attractive option for some of these people. But there does have to be a line that doesn't get crossed. And at some point, if you're a leader, and you care about these people and you talk about how AEW is the safest company in the world. And that's the other comment I made. I said, Darby Allin, and we'll tie Darby into this. Darby Allin broke his foot in March. He got hit by a bus, okay, in April. He showed up on television last week to take Eddie Kingston's spot. Eddie Kingston, who also has a fractured tibia, is waiting to have surgery on his knee. He got fucked up even worse than Copeland did, but that was in a New Japan match. But he's like, he hears that Eddie Kingston is out, and he calls Tony Khan and says, I want in. And he gets cleared, sight unseen. His doctors didn't even see him. He was on the phone with them. And he admits in an interview that he did, I don't feel good. I'm not 100%. I still can't walk. When I got to the building for Dynamite that night, that was the first time I put my foot in a shoe. And I don't know what's going to happen. And all the people who were saying that I shouldn't be doing this, they may be right. But, hey, we'll find out on Sunday. I don't want to ever hear Tony Khan at another scrum go that AEW is the safest company in the world. You can't go around saying that when we have all of these different examples, and clearly AEW, they don't really give a shit. It's like, it's all for the show. It's like, you know what? Oh, that sounds great. Go ahead, do that. You know, we'll make sure there's a doctor at ringside. Somebody should step in every now and then and say, you know what? Yeah, that's too much. We're not going to allow that. It stops and starts with Tony Khan, and evidently he's not too bothered by it. So I don't see him doing anything about it, but we can come up with example after example. The Darby one is the one that gets me, though. I mean, he was limping around on Dynamite last week, and he is back in an Anarchy in the Arena match. That's his first match back. Like, if you would have told me going into that pay-per-view on Sunday, someone's going to get hurt badly and end up in the hospital, I would have said Darby. I wouldn't have said Copeland. If anything, I was shocked that Darby apparently made it out mostly unscathed from that match. But he shouldn't have been allowed in that match in the first place.
They didn't really treat him with tender love and care in that match. They had him hanging upside down for like 5 minutes and then super kicked him with fucking thumbtacks.
Yeah, but for Darby, that's pretty tame. You got to be honest. I mean, it could have been.
I potentially got run over by a fucking car.
Yeah, well, you know what though, Darby. The other thing that surprised me, somebody got set on fire, and it wasn't Darby. Darby was the one setting them on fire. I would have expected it to be the other way around, but it's just ridiculous. I mean, there are times like Jack Perry being set on fire. We've seen that even in WWE, right? I mean, that I can understand. You take precautions. Clearly, he was, doused in whatever material they had to put on him, and like I don't really have an issue with that. There are controlled ways to do stunts like that. But it's letting these guys go out there when they have no business doing these things. And you know that something could very well go wrong. It probably will go wrong. You already have how many people on the injured list?
That was my next point. Like,
you can build an entire roster with the people that were just on injury reserve.
They can't complain. They can't complain when they have an entire roster worth of injuries that could fill an entire fucking pay-per-view card, another company per se, and then they want to complain, oh, the interest is down, the fans don't like what we're doing, stop complaining. Meanwhile, you get MJF back on Sunday, you get Adam Cole back hopefully very, very, very soon now that he's walking and he's actually taking bumps, and then you just trade off. Yeah, Copeland's going to be out for 9 months, man. We'll just give and trade. Like, what the fuck is going on there? Like, you don't think Copeland wanted to do something on top of Hell in a Cell with Finn Balor last year? Do you know who stepped in? Management stepped in. Guys, we're not going to allow you to do that because we actually respect our performers and care for your well-being. So Adam Copeland in AEW, apparently nobody wanted to step in and say, Cope, you know what? I think it's best you keep it grounded. He'd still be here on Wednesday. Now he's not. He's going to be in the hospital, and he's out for 9 months. In this case, it's 4 to 6 months. With his age, we don't really know. It could be longer, but it's a dumb move. And people coming after Jason, I said what I said on my stream. I mean, let him do what he wants to do. All right. Now he's laid up in a hospital somewhere.
Yeah, and again, Eddie Kingston, it's going to be at least a year before we see him, unfortunately. And Copeland now, 4 to 6 months probably. I don't know with Darby. I don't know if Darby's going to go right back to taking time off, or if Darby is back now. Absolutely, he should. I mean, he can't even walk. He says his nose hurts him. He says, again, he's got like a gimpy foot. let the man relax, let the man rest and heal up so he can come back 100% and not come back 50% and then hurt himself even worse, which is something Tony Khan can ill afford. And a couple of weeks ago, we went through the list of people who are out, have been out. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Powerhouse Hobbs got hurt several weeks ago. The last thing anybody wants to see, I mean, look, in a wrestling match, you can get hurt doing a leapfrog. You can get hurt doing a body slam, okay? There's a certain level of risk that you accept when you get in the ring to be a pro wrestler, and I respect the hell out of anybody who's willing to do it, but there's a fine line between that and just being stupid and doing dumb, unnecessary shit. And I just think that we've seen far too much of it, and I hope stuff like this, as awful as it is, can hopefully be a wake-up call that, you know what, maybe we should dial it back a little bit. I don't think the fans are going to mind if we dial it back just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And if I'm Tony Khan, I'm wrapping Bryan Danielson in some sort of protective bubble until we get to Wembley, because he's the next to go. And then if we get Bryan missing Wembley again, and now Copeland, come on, man. Something's got to be done. Speaking of the TNT title, Jason, obviously it's going to be vacated. Like you said, I pray to fucking Christ that Tony Khan does not do an interim title. Please, if somebody over there is listening here, stop. No. Just vacate the title and do something with it. Obviously, it won't be a tournament because we got the Owen Hart Memorial Cup.
Oh, you don't think so?
2 tournaments.
You don't think it can't be a tournament? Really?
I don't know.
It's Tony Khan's favorite thing in the world. Of course, it could be a tournament.
I know.
I'm hoping not, but I wouldn't be so sure there won't be a tournament.
So how are we going to go about this new TNT champion? Are we going to bring the rankings into play?
Is that a joke? You're kidding, right?
It was supposed to be, yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to be sure.
I know you mentioned Jack Perry. Last week we talked about this with the Double or Nothing predictions. You mentioned Jack Perry potentially beating a once last week healthy Adam Copeland. Clearly that's not the case now. What is the best way as far as the TNT Championship goes now? If you are in control of this, if you have the pen, how are you crowning a new TNT champion? And who are the top names on your list to be crowned champion as we take this belt into the summer now? The first 2 people, honestly, that stick out to me are Jack Perry, obviously number 1, and I would love to see Jay White get some pull here, for the TNT Championship. Pac is another one. I don't know how we go about it. I wish they would really come up with something creative. I wish television before this has mattered. Maybe we take a couple of people that have a nice string of momentum, some wins under their belt, put them in a nice gauntlet match or something like that, like we've seen many times with WWE. I don't know how they go about it, but if you had the pen, what would you do?
Well, one thing I would not do, because of the timing of everything, I would not do a tournament, and I certainly would not do a battle royal, which is the other thing I'm hoping we don't get. It's the last fucking thing we need. You said, again, the Owen Hart tournaments are coming up very soon. They're going to be doing the finals on July 10th, so they'll be kicking off in the next few weeks. There's no ideal situation for it. I mean, they could do an angle involving the Elite if the idea is ultimately to get the belt on Jack Perry, where they effectively gift him the title, which would be kind of lame, but I could see a situation like that. I would probably lean in the direction of having qualifying matches to get guys into maybe a fatal 4-way. So instead of just picking 4 names at random, you could do that too. Yeah, you can have matches on television where you have to qualify to get into a 4-way, and then you crown a new champion in some sort of tornado 4-way, or maybe even a 4-way like elimination match, instead of one fall to a finish. And that way you're not doing a tournament, you're not doing a battle royal, but you can use this to your advantage. You can get a few weeks worth of television out of this, right? We're going to crown a new TNT champion. It's like the King and Queen of the Ring stuff. The thing I liked about it also, it killed time on TV. It brought some level of significance to the matches that we saw on Raw and SmackDown every week. It was a good gimmick for them for the month of May. So AEW can do something similar here in the month of June, and you build to, let's say, a 4-way, and you crown a new champion that way. One other thought I had, and I'm not saying I would do this, but it was just an idea that came to me, and it would be interesting, because I saw Sammy Guevara. He posted something on Instagram, a picture of himself with the TNT title. He's a 3-time TNT champion. Yes,
I saw that.
So he's throwing his name in the hat. Right? We haven't seen him in months. He got suspended. I don't know when his suspension ended or if he's still under suspension, but we haven't seen him in months since he injured Jeff Hardy. Maybe one idea could be to run back the Pillars match that they did at Double or Nothing last year, because now MJF is back. You've got Jack Perry in this new role. Sammy Guevara could, maybe that's a tease that he is going to be back on TV, very soon. And so what is that? It's 3 pillars, right? That's MJF, that's Sam. Who am I missing? Who's the Darby? Darby, hey, look, we all know. You say, hey, Darby, we got an idea. Darby will be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in. Maybe they run back the Pillars match, but it's for the TNT title, and that's how Jack Perry gets the belt. And that could also be their way of sparking something involving MJF and the Elite, because they haven't had any interaction. But with MJF being back and not knowing when Adam Cole may be healthy enough to come back, I wouldn't mind seeing MJF, have some interaction in this Elite angle, which is the top angle in the company. So that's another idea, but I like that 4-way idea. As far as getting guys in there, you mentioned Jay White. I would love to see Jay White, either get the title or at least be involved. They got Juice Robinson back. Juice Robinson can hold the trios titles with the Guns.
Yes.
We can get Jay White back in singles competition. He could try to bring singles gold, into the, I still call them Bullet Club gold, but I guess they're the Bang Bang Gang now. So Jay White is one name I would love to have on that list. I saw some people saying, well, just, it's got to go to Malachi now. It's not going to Malachi. If they wanted Malachi Black to be the TNT champion, he would have won the title on Sunday. I don't see that happening. One more name I would throw out there is Konosuke Takeshita, who I think it was ridiculous watching him take that loss on Sunday. I was not a fan of that at all. I still think that, I don't know, I would like to see him eventually with that international title. I come back to that title, but him being in the mix is something I could definitely get behind. So, there's any number of people who would be deserving of challenging for it. I still feel like Jack Perry is going to get it, and I think it makes sense for him to get it. Look at the way they put him over at the end of that show. Who got the winning fall in the main event on Sunday?
Jack Perry pinned Bryan Danielson.
Jack Perry got set on fire and came back and won the match. Like, you could not have put him over any more strongly than they did. Obviously, they have plans for him. Him and Swerve, unless he's going to beat Swerve, I don't really see the point in doing that. Why not give him the TNT title? It's up for grabs now. Makes all the sense in the world to me. They have the tag team titles. They have the Continental title. Jack Perry wins the TNT title. That's how I would do it. I would steer clear of a tournament, but I would build to a match. You mentioned a gauntlet. Yeah. I'd be open to that too. Maybe you can get more people involved that way, and then they draw randomly as far as who enters when. I like those ideas.
Yeah, going back to what you said, as long as they make television worthwhile. Like, I hate watching mindless fucking television that doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. Which has been the case for a lot of these Dynamites going into Double or Nothing. As long as they make the shows worthwhile and the matches mean something and have an end goal, like you said, maybe we get some singles matches and we get 4 individual singles matches, and the winners of those matches go into a fatal 4-way at the end of the night or some other week, whatever the case may be. I like that. Stretch it out. Which brings me to my next point with the Owen Hart. I know you are in agreement with the winners getting a world championship match here, because I feel like this should have been from the get-go. But as far as the winners getting a championship match at All In, this is the Women's Championship and the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So those matches will be determined come July 10th in Calgary, Alberta for the finals of the Owen. How are you looking at this tournament for AEW to go about it a little bit differently this year? Because I said on my stream on Monday, Tony has this thing about putting together a tournament, and the matches really seem like he selected the opponents and the people in the tournament out of a randomizer. It's like some of the matches don't make sense. I know Willow won the tournament last year. Ricky Starks won the tournament last year. Willow ended up being a lot better off than Ricky Starks, obviously. I don't know if the
Ricky who?
He's waiting outside Stanford Titan Tower right now.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if Willow, the tournament, had any bearing on where Willow is now. I don't really think so. Some people may disagree with that, but regardless, my point is here, I feel, Jason, that the tournament, if the stakes are this high, they need to load this shit up with the absolute most elite talent that they have. If Cole is healthy, get Adam Cole in there. If MJF is healthy, ready to go, get MJF in this tournament. Will Ospreay, Takeshita, Okada. I want to see the best of the best because Tony Khan has this thing where he puts tournaments together and he feels like he's afraid to have certain match outcomes happen and put certain people in matches where he doesn't want someone to lose, so he stays away from it, and then we get some fucking randomized bullshit match that is very predictable. I want this tournament, specifically coming from me, to feel like it's the best of the best, because if something like that is on the line, it should be absolutely nothing but that. How do you feel about the way these tournaments should shape up?
Yeah, I am in full agreement on that. And MJF, for example, is one name who I think has to be in there. Why would he not be in there? Why would he not want to be in there? The last time we saw him, he got screwed out of his title.
Yeah.
If anybody should want the AEW World title back, it should be MJF. And there are stories that you can weave into it. MJF may not win the tournament, but again, if he's going to be, let's say, dealing still with the Undisputed Kingdom, they could screw him out of a win in the semifinals. He doesn't lose anything because of it. You bounce him out of the tournament. But you got to have big names in there. Last year, they had CM Punk and Samoa Joe were two of the big names that were in the Owen. And that's the way to go. But they also had Dustin Rhodes and they had Satoshi Kojima. All due respect to those two, they don't belong in a tournament like this. Now that there's actual stakes on the line, those are the types of people that don't belong in this tournament. They need to have names where you can look at them and go, you know what, I can believe that this guy would go to the main event at Wembley Stadium and challenge for the world title.
And to be fair, the Kojima Punk match at Forbidden Door was really good.
It was very good, but now that we have stakes in this tournament, and we did not last year, but we do now, I wouldn't want to hear that Satoshi Kojima is coming back to be in the Owen for the second year in a row.
No.
I mean, that would be ridiculous.
No, I don't. Well, like Jason said, we don't want to see Anthony Bowens in the fucking tournament. We don't want to see half of a tag team in the fucking tournament. World Championship caliber athletes. That's it.
Yeah, we were just talking about Jay White and people like that. AEW, sometimes I think they get in their own way. They don't want to beat guys.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world that they have competitive matches and they're in there. And again, you can spin off stories from the tournament where, maybe guys meet in one of the rounds and one beats the other and you can spark an issue there. And when that guy goes on to lose, it comes back to those two because he's upset that you beat me in the tournament and now you've got a match maybe set up for All In. Like, there's different ways you can go about it. You can use the Owen Hart tournament for more than just crowning a number one contender. You can spin off a couple of stories out of it. So I'm in agreement with you on that. As far as, who I see, now we don't know who's in it yet. We have not heard any of the names on the men's side or the women's side. As soon as it was announced, I said, Will Ospreay for the men and Mariah May for the women.
Absolutely.
Those are the two names that make all the sense in the world. And without knowing exactly who's going to be in it, that's who I'm putting over. If I have the pen, those are the two names that are going over and going to Wembley Stadium.
It's definitely looking like that. If I was to also pick two, those are the people that I'm going with as well. Tony made a correction with the Owen. He made the Owen much more prestigious. This is actually going to trickle down to Dynamite. Dynamite now feels must-see. It gives the show importance. It gives the show meaning. Now, only if he fixed the Continental Classic come December, we're looking good for the tournaments because we got the Owen right and now fix the Continental Classic because I don't know what the fuck the winner of that tournament's going to get. And
I want to give a shout out to Catlight because Catlight just triggered something in my head here. Catlight said, please put Pac in. Yeah. You could do, and this is the match I wanted to see, honestly, a Double or Nothing. Is Pac and Jay White one-on-one? Why not do Pac and Jay White in one of the rounds, maybe the opening round of the Owen?
Yeah, I agree.
What a hell of a match that would be. We had Gunther and Sheamus in the opening round of the King of the Ring, and it was a fucking banger. Yeah. Why not do Pac and Jay White as one of the opening round matches in the Owen? It's that sort of thing that I'm hoping for.
Or maybe Wardlow versus MJF in the opening round.
Absolutely. And you know what? That would make a lot of sense because that kind of jumping ahead here. I was going to jump to MJF as far as what does MJF do now that he's back? But that actually would tie in very nicely with the idea that I was thinking about.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And like I said, the Continental Classic needs to be fixed as well. Just a little sidetrack here. The Continental Classic, I loved what they did last year. I just don't like the championship being on the line within the tournament. It's just very convoluted. I would keep the champion out of the tournament. I know he takes a lot of influence from the G1 I just want it to be a round robin tournament with at the end of the tournament, you get the championship match or a world championship match for that matter at fucking Revolution or something along those lines. I don't like the champion competing in the tournament itself. I find that to be a little lame. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but that's just the way I feel. I don't know. How do you feel about the Continental Classic? Because I know you ranted about that too.
I mean, as a tournament, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it gave us some of the best wrestling on television all year. So that aspect of it I enjoyed. But at the time, I was of the mindset, and I still feel the same way, you had a scramble match that they threw on the Revolution card. It was like thrown together. And Wardlow won.
Yes.
And Wardlow won a shot at the AEW World title. You dedicated a month or more, however long it was, might have been 6 weeks, to this grueling round-robin tournament where the winner got a shiny brand new belt. And I guess the story was that Eddie Kingston said, look, I'm going to put my titles in the pot. That's not going to be every year. That was like a one-time gimmick. But you put this tournament together, and the winner gets another championship that was completely unnecessary. Then you throw together a scramble match, and that winner gets a shot at the AEW World title. There's something backwards about that. It should have been the other way around. And you should have had the winner of that tournament, since he's taking influence from New Japan. That's the way it works with the G1. You win a shot at the title at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it couldn't have worked the same way with the winner of the Continental Classic, other than there's the prestige of winning, could go on to Revolution and challenge for the title. I'd like to see that change made in the future. I think that would be for the better.
There you go, Tony. Fix it. Great tournament. Just terrible follow-up.
Fantastic tournament. Yeah, absolutely.
We mentioned MJF before, and MJF is back. The ace of the company is back. And a lot of people did not expect him to be back so soon. There were rumors of his demise, of him being out most of the year with that shoulder injury. But MJF returned to Double or Nothing. He low-blowed Adam Cole, cut a fiery promo on not only Adam Cole, but literally everybody in the company. And he is now back, hopefully, on television. Whether or not we see him on Wednesday, I hope so. He is back for now. AEW Double or Nothing saw the return of MJF, and this is coming from Fightful. They have not heard that MJF actually underwent shoulder surgery, as he told some people in the industry he had worn the brace to help throw people off his track in recent weeks, which I'm not surprised to hear. MJF was legitimately injured going into World's End. The nature of Adam Cole's injury played a major factor in the creative of whatever they were telling last year, and the ramifications are still felt. There were plans for a major match between the two last year, but as of the spring, it didn't look like that would be possible upon MJF's immediate return, although Cole did get physical during the MJF segment at the pay-per-view. There have been additional MJF themes prepared by Mikey Ruckus, including the orchestra version you heard on the promo and a piano version. There have also been significant creative plans in order for MJF to be involved in a top feud. And as if MJF didn't make it clear enough, he's in AEW long-term on a multi-million-dollar per year contract. So obviously he's back and he's staying with the company. Whether or not the tattoo is real or not, I have no idea. If it is, good for him. I'm glad he stands by the company. You know, you always remember your first love, and AEW gave him the platform to be who he is today. But Jason, with him being back, I know a lot has been made about Will Ospreay being signed and Mercedes being signed and Okada being signed. And I've been very vocal that the creative is everything. And the ratings really haven't shown the impact that these three names really do have. I feel like the interest levels are still low. They haven't made really any lick of a difference on any aspect of the show. But you know who is going to make a difference? The guy who was probably and is the best homegrown talent that AEW's ever produced, and that's MJF. He generates the interest. He generates all of the excitement when he comes out. You just feel something's different when he's there, whether it's his realism or his character just amped up. I don't know what it is, but when he's there, everything just feels that much more important. And I mentioned this on Monday. You know, a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people looking at AEW now and the interest might not be there, and Tony might have swayed the original vision from what it was to something completely different. And a lot of the fans may be losing interest because of Tony Khan hiring all these ex-WWE guys and hiring all these people that aren't really homegrown AEW. But MJF is who they really look to and kind of sit with and say, that's the AEW I remember. And everything that comes along with the interest and the hot AEW that was, it all has to do with MJF. So him being back is probably the biggest game-changing decision and the biggest shot in the arm that Tony Khan can have, bigger than a Mercedes, bigger than an Ospreay, bigger than an Okada. You can't duplicate what MJF brings to the table.
No, and in the way that I think Sting was the franchise of WCW, that's what MJF is to AEW. You know, he is their biggest homegrown talent, but I would argue he's their ace. Like you said, he's their top star. You've got your Kenny Omegas, Will Ospreay is already, hugely over, and he, was probably going to be their top babyface or one of their top baby faces. But the loss of MJF was definitely felt over the last few months, and getting him back, like you said, he just has a certain intensity about him, especially on promos when he's out there. He has a certain connection, whether he's a heel or a babyface, that he makes with the audience. And there was a huge void when he went down with that injury. So his return could not come at a better time for a couple of different reasons. Number one, they're heading into their biggest show of the year, Wembley Stadium. So to get him back in time for the summer and for Wembley is huge. But to get him back into time when ratings have been going down. And they're in this negotiation window we talked about for at least another, month or so with Warner Brothers Discovery. Getting him back now is gigantic. And there's any number of people that he could, work with. The one that would make the most sense would be Adam Cole. We don't know exactly when he'll be cleared. I know the reports are that they've got creative lined up for him for a top feud. And again, it could be with Cole, it could be with the Elite, it could be with any number of people. Whoever it is, it doesn't even matter. Whoever it is, getting him back is the shot in the arm that I think the product needs right now. It was smart to do what they did on the pay-per-view, because now everybody is aware of the fact that he's back. He cut that fiery promo, and hopefully, if you're an AEW fan or if you're Tony Khan, you're thinking, okay, we can get a nice bump tomorrow night, and people will tune in. We'll get more eyeballs on the show because they're going to want to see him. What's he going to say, and what's he going to do? So I think the timing could not be any better for them. I think that a lot was made about him coming out there doing his best Triple H impression with the vest and the jacket. He looks like he's in great shape. He looks like he's ready to go.
Yep.
And so for Tony Khan, he's got to be happier than anybody because he has been bitten by the injury bug more than he would like to be. And to be able to get him back right now is exactly what he needs when he needs it.
What did you make of MJF basically putting to rest everything that happened as soon as he went out with injury? He low-blowed Adam Cole. He basically shit all over the Devil, the Mask. No more kangaroo kicks. I don't know if it was him just kind of moving on past Cole. I'd like to see them at some point get at least one more match to get some closure there. I don't know where he's going to go upon his return, MJF, but what did you think of him coming out basically alluding to everything that fans have kind of murmured about? The MJF babyface run, the cheesy babyface that he was playing, and he basically said, no more bullshit. You're going to come out, the scarf is gone, I got the jacket now, and you're not getting no more of that shit. You're going to get fucking MJF, the best in the motherfucking world. How do you feel about him basically alluding to just moving past all that and just forgetting everything that happened?
It kind of struck me that maybe Cole is not ready yet to get back in the ring, and they know that. Because if he was ready, I think they would go to that match in the next few months. It would make sense to do Cole and MJF at Wembley 1 year after they headlined the show. Now you run it back one more time. MJF beats him, gets his revenge, and then moves on. I don't know what his status is, though. So it felt to me like, let's get this out of the way now, because it has to be addressed, like the elephant in the room, right? The last time we saw him, we all know what happened with the Devil angle. Cole's not ready yet, so let's just get this out of the way, and we'll move MJF, at least for now, onto something else. That's kind of the impression that I got out of it. I think linking him in with this Elite story in some way, it's kind of like what they've done with Swerve, where Swerve has said, look, I think it's a bitch move. What you did to Tony Khan, He ran into the Bucks. He was sitting in their chair backstage last week. They've dropped little hints, right? They're the ones who handpicked Christian to wrestle him at Double or Nothing. I'm curious to see now, where does that go? Now that he beat Christian and that's in the rear view, he's the champion. I'd like to see him involved with whatever the number one thing is that's going on right now in the company. But I feel like MJF should be there too, and I just don't know what that looks like. You know, is that him working with Jack Perry? Is that him working with Okada? I don't know. I don't know exactly who makes the most sense for that first feud for him. I mean, I'll be tuned in tomorrow night, and of the things that I'm looking forward to the most, that I'm most interested in, that's probably number one on the list. So I don't know who it's going to end up being, but that's the impression that I got too. It's like, well, we can't go right back to the Cole and MJF stuff yet. You know, we will, but I don't know that that's something that's in the cards in the short term.
If you're Swerve Strickland, are you looking around with MJF's return now, a little worried going into the summer months? Because, you know, whether people want to admit it or not, Swerve is fucking great at what he does, don't get me wrong, but I don't think personally they've handled this title run all that great so far in a month and a half or so. Are you worried that AEW is going to basically take Swerve and push him aside now that MJF is back? Because in my honest opinion, the only natural thing for MJF to want is his AEW World Championship back, because he was screwed out of it at World's End. You got MJF in the mix. You got Will Ospreay in the mix. I mean, the reactions that he's getting, I mean, I've said that Will Ospreay should be to AEW what Cody Rhodes is to WWE. He is that over, and the fans just absolutely adore him and love him. If you're Swerve Strickland, are you worried about what creative is going to do? Because MJF is a powerhouse coming back. You got Will Ospreay now looming. What does that mean for Swerve's title run?
I don't know if you're Swerve that you're worried or you're scared. I mean, look, we are both, I think, very big fans of him and his work. We know what he can do. We know the opportunities he didn't get elsewhere, and the opportunities that he's had really since the feud with Hangman. That really is what put him on the map as a headliner in this company. It was when that program, go back to Wrestle Dream last year. You know, that first match they had, the Texas Death Match at Full Gear, was just, I mean, that's something that'll be, you know, talked about for years to come. So the talent is there. He's over organically. Him and Prince Nana, it's a great combo. As a fan, I'm worried for him, because my fear is that, okay, they got their big gun back, and Ospreay's kind of nipping at his heels, because we all see where he's headed. He's going up the card. It's more competition for him. But again, I think competition's a great thing. I think as a fan, I would love to see a busy scene on top in the main event scene and have a solid 4 or 5 guys that are all fighting for the same title. Yep. Because I look back on one of my favorite periods in wrestling was back in the late 90s, maybe around 96, 97. And you had Austin. You had Shawn Michaels, you had Bret Hart, you had The Undertaker, you could even throw Sid. You had these like 5 guys who were all pissed off at each other, and they were all fighting over the same thing, which was the title. And that's what we need here in AEW. So let's get Swerve, let's get Ospreay, let's get MJF, and then you need a couple of heels to round things out. And let's have them all going after the title. Swerve, I don't see Swerve having a long run with this belt. Before I knew MJF was going to be back this soon, I had Swerve and Ospreay as my main event for Wembley, and I would have put the belt on Ospreay. And that doesn't mean that Swerve's run is over. He'll never be champion again. It just means that I think that would be the right move to make, and then Swerve will have to challenge him for it, and they can maybe have a feud back and forth. Swerve eventually can win the belt back. But I think the more competition there is for that top spot, the better, and the more fun that it makes the shows. Otherwise, it's just boring. So I look at it, and I'm kind of excited that they're getting some of these names back, and to see what they're going to do as far as Tony Khan being the one in charge, and it's going to ultimately be his creative that plays itself out. That presents a lot of questions. I don't know what he has in mind. But if I'm Swerve, I'm like, you know what? Bring it on. Because I know what I can do. I know that I'm the best. My work speaks for itself. I'll get in the ring with anybody. I'll show anybody up. That's the kind of attitude you need to have. You know, and he's got that. He's got that moxie about him. So I'm not worried about that. But, you know, the more the merrier is what I say. I think it'll make the main event scene more fun.
Yeah, I like that too. Monday Night Raw was actually trending that way before WrestleMania, before Rollins went out with the injury. You had Punk, you had McIntyre, you had Rollins, Cody was still on the show. Priest was there.
Priest had the briefcase.
It's very exciting to see the top of the card with some major names like that in abundance. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I get what you're saying or going with that. Yeah, that's great. I wish AEW would really. I mean, they got to stay healthy first and foremost for that to happen.
Yeah, well, that's been their problem, and so there's nothing you can do about that. Guys are going to get hurt all the time. They're in a good position, though, because they have so much talent that even with all the injuries, they still have a surplus of talent. One guy goes down, he's got another name he can plug in there. But, again, MJF is back. Great. Adam Cole, hopefully he'll be healthy soon. Great. Swerve. We don't know if Christian is still going to be, do they want to get one more match out of Christian Cage and Swerve? Is Jack Perry going to be elevated into that scene? Okada has the Continental title. Get him in there, too. I mean, like I said, Switchblade. There's so many guys they can plug into that main event picture, and you can have so many little mini feuds going on at the same time. That, to me, is what Tony Khan should be thinking about and what could carry these shows and make these shows more interesting as they go through the summer. And that's what he should be doing because they've been missing so many people. As they come back, I want to see them on TV, and everybody, all of these guys, should want that world title. I know there's a gazillion titles that they could go after. There's the international title, and there's the continental title, the for the world title, whatever the fuck Chris Jericho is called.
They want to add mixed tag team titles women's tag team titles. I mean, what the really?
Yeah. You know what? I'm not. It's an interesting concept, and WWE did that mixed match challenge thing a few years ago, and I watched that, and it was interesting. I'm actually not opposed to the concept of mixed tag team titles. But not when you have all of these other titles. No. That's the thing. I mean, there's so many as it is. The last thing they need is more. So I don't hate that idea. I actually think that could be kind of interesting. And it's something that could separate them from WWE if, let's say, they wanted to make it, intergender and allow that sort of thing. I mean, that again, I think they should be thinking of ways to separate themselves from WWE and everybody else. That could be one interesting way to do it, but not when they just have so many other fucking titles already. I just think it's just a mess. When you look at these pay-per-view cards and they stack these shows, but you look at them and it's like title match, title match, title match. Everything's a title match. And at what point does it just kind of lose its allure? It's like, oh, all right, well, every match is a title match. Everyone has a title. After a while, it's like, what does it really mean?
And maybe one or two of them will actually have a legit story going into it.
Well, that's a whole other issue. I mean, look, they got plenty of stories. They're just not all. They're not all good stories.
Yeah.
No.
We got a Kenny Omega update. Speaking of the injuries, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful said 2 weeks ago that Kenny Omega underwent surgery for diverticulitis in New York City, which some fans did actually ended up posting pictures of him in the area. There are currently no creative plans for Omega in AEW at this time, and they're expecting a lengthy recovery process. Omega has been sidelined since mid-December 2003. Before being pulled from the World's End pay-per-view, Omega returned to TV to be written off by the Elite, as they are now taking the company over from Tony Khan per storyline. So Kenny Omega is going to be out for a little bit. I wish him nothing but the best. A healthy Kenny Omega, I feel like we haven't had that in forever. And when a healthy Kenny Omega is on TV, again, just like MJF, his presence has been absolutely missed. When he comes back, there's just a fucking energy on the show, just watching it from home, that is sorely missing. So I wish him nothing but the best, and hopefully he gets back quicker than as expected. Being that we were talking about Will Ospreay, I want to move on to this story here. Will Ospreay was recently interviewed with comicbook.com, and he discussed one Ricochet from WWE. He talked about and admitted that he does worry that Ricochet isn't being treated right in WWE. He says, people in AEW here appreciate his work. I keep up with him all the time, and sometimes I get a little bit sad about it. I hope he's not sad, and I hope he's really happy. I keep up with him as much as I can, but I feel like people are forgetting who Ricochet was once upon a time. And then he goes on to say, because obviously, if you guys are not aware, WWE has struck a deal with X, where they have an exclusive show called WWE Speed. And with this exclusive show comes an exclusive championship. And Ricochet is the show's champion. He has the WWE Speed Championship. Ricochet was asked, why don't we see WWE promote the title or I guess they promote the show, but he's not allowed to show off the title on Monday Night Raw because X wants it exclusively on their platform, want it shown exclusively on their platform. The title can't be shown anywhere else. So Ricochet is the champion here. And Will Ospreay mentioned this, and he said, WWE valuing Ricochet's work for minutes at a time is appalling. He says the fact that they only value his time for under 5 minutes is appalling to me. I just want people to remember who he is. If you go back and look at 2012, 2013 Dragon Gate Ricochet, he was untouchable at the time. I don't know how much longer he has got on his contract, but I think it might be up soon, man. I don't know, maybe. I want him to know that there are people here in AEW that genuinely appreciate his work, and I want to wrestle him again. I want him back here. I want him to know that there isn't a bar. You are the fucking bar, end quote. Well, I mean, listen, if you're going to sell me on a Ricochet and Will Ospreay match, I mean, sign me up, seriously. But I think I've said this countless times. I know, Jason, you have talked about Ricochet as well on your end. I feel like under Vince McMahon, this might be true, and I do sense that what Will Ospreay is saying here as far as him working minutes at a time and him being utilized for that is appalling. I think appalling is a strong word. I think under Triple H, he's been just a little bit better. I mean, it's not as egregious as it was under Vince McMahon, but in my honest opinion, Ricochet is not where he should be as far as his status on the card because he's worth so much more than that. His body of work is fucking unbelievable. The way he sells for his opponent, I feel like everybody he's in the ring with, he makes better. And I feel like WWE never really valued him outside of what he brought to the table in NXT when the Black and Gold era was around. He was absolutely I couldn't wait to see him on the main roster. Just because we haven't seen anything like that in WWE in quite some time. And he never really struck it on the main roster. But with Triple H, I know he likes Ricochet. I know he adores Ricochet. But he never seems to get where everybody feels like he belongs. Why is that? What's the holdup on Ricochet?
I heard what Will said, and I agree that I think a lot of it really is more applicable to Ricochet if you go back a few years. I remember, I think he had a match with Brock Lesnar, and Brock just kind of threw him around.
Yeah.
He wasn't used in any kind of meaningful way. I'm going to disagree with him, though, in that he wants Ricochet, and I see what he's saying. Ricochet is just incredibly gifted, athletically. And I remember when he was still on the independent scene, he was the guy, and the matches he was having, he was doing things that nobody had seen before. So I actually do think that in AEW, he would fit right in with a lot of those guys because we'd be seeing him doing a lot of the, gymnastic type stuff, and he would excel at that. I actually don't think he's in a bad spot right now in WWE. He's talking about the speed stuff and doing matches. It's actually under 3 minutes, not even 5 minutes. But to me, that's not a big deal. I mean, again, they have this deal they made. There were a bunch of people in this tournament who, they wrestle similar styles. Ricochet went over. He's the champion. That deal is obviously very important to WWE. I don't know financially what exactly they're making off of it, but that doesn't bother me. Ricochet's been getting quite a bit of television time on Raw in recent months. And the match he had in the King of the Ring, him and Ilya Dragunov, that was, that was probably... Honestly, that probably was the best match. I mean, would you say that was the best match in the tournament?
That was the best match in the tournament, yeah.
Yeah, I think in the entire tournament, the only thing that would rival it would be the match that night with Gunther and Sheamus. I think those are easily the two best matches in the entire tournament.
I would actually disagree. I thought Gunther Randy Orton was better, honestly.
Then what?
Gunther Sheamus.
I disagree. No. Gunther and Sheamus and Ricochet and Ilya were the two best matches in the tournament. After that, I would probably go Gunther and Randy. Although Randy and AJ had a pretty good match too.
Yes.
But the point is, he's been getting, I think, a fair amount of television time in recent months. Could they have used him better in the past? Yes. But he is a former Intercontinental Champion. Could his run have been stronger? Yes. Although Gunther beat him, and then Gunther went on to have this, insanely fantastic run. So I can't really complain about that. So I'm a little divided on this because it's like, all right, if you're Will Ospreay and you're saying these things and it's egregious and they should be doing, they should be pushing him to the moon, what would you have Ricochet do right now?
It's
right?
tough.
I mean,
It's tough because my next question to you is it just a case of wrong place, wrong time? I mean, look at everybody else around him that's potentially competing for championships. It almost gives you a feeling that he doesn't fit in because of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in a bad spot right now. And if I try to come up with a better thing for him to do at the moment, right now, it's like, you know what? He's in the spot that he should be in. Yeah. We have this ongoing feud right now with Sami Zayn and Chad Gable, which is the best story going on Raw at the moment. You know, in the absence of Punk is still out. I mean, Punk and McIntyre probably would be number one, but that's fantastic. And I love that segment they did last night with the Alpha Academy. It was the best part of Raw last night. So I love what they're doing right now with the Intercontinental title. He's not going to be part of the world title picture. He doesn't fit right now. You know, it's not his time. It's not his place. I wouldn't have him there. I would have people like McIntyre and Priest and Punk or Rollins and just do what they're doing at the moment. So there's really no better spot for him to be in that I would use him in at this moment. Maybe I would move him over to SmackDown and try to do more with him there, but you know, even as I look at the U.S. title, you know, I am looking at Logan Paul and LA Knight, you know, as maybe a SummerSlam program. I think Ricochet is in a fine spot right now, and he's getting television time, and I think he's being treated better now than at any other moment in all the years he's been in WWE outside of his run in NXT. I'm talking about since he was called up to the main roster. I think the role he's in now is probably the best role that he's been in. So I think the timing of the comments doesn't really fit. I don't look at it and go, oh man, they're really fucking over Ricochet here. Boy, could they be using him better? Yeah, but you could say that about probably 85% of the people on the roster. And you know that those guys feel the same way. Everybody thinks they could be used better. Man, I wish I was getting more time. Man, I wish I was wrestling this guy or I was wrestling for that title. You're always going to have some degree of that. But I have to push back a little bit. I really don't think he's in a terrible spot right now. I think he's in a pretty decent place, and in time, there may be an opening where they could do more with him and maybe put a title on him. Now is not that time. And he has a title on him. It may not mean much, but he actually technically does have a title on him right now. So I think Ricochet is fine. I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah, life ain't all that bad for Ricochet in WWE. And honestly,
yeah,
if we get the matches that we get out of him with the mid-card that is Monday Night Raw, I mean, that shit is loaded. I don't know where they're going with Braun Breaker and Dragunov, and Ricochet is a part of that. I mean, that's a very good spot to be in. If the company's calling upon you to help get those guys over and are going to allow you to go out there and be you, I don't know why that's a bad spot for him.
I'll say one more thing about that. Ricochet has never been what I would consider to be a great promo.
No.
And that is something that is valued in WWE more than any other promotion. Okay, you have to be able to go out there and do these backstage segments and interact with people and cut promos in front of the live audience. He's not the worst that I've ever seen, but he's also, I wouldn't say that he's great. It's not his strong suit. His strong suit is in the ring when the bell rings. There was a segment on Raw last night with him being cleared. He was with Adam Pearce, and then Ilya Dragunov walked in, and they had some dialogue. They went back and forth, and I think Dragunov said something, you know, because Ricochet had the tape on his ribs from being speared the week before by Braun Breaker, and he had just been cleared. And Dragunov made the comment. He said it was something to the effect of like, I break people, but I don't wrestle broken people.
Yes,
or it was something like that. And I said that's a great line. And then Ricochet came back at him, and again I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like, you know, I'm Ricochet and I've never been broke. But it was like, you know what? That's like the most natural I've heard him sound, and like the best dialogue I've heard. Like he actually sounded like a badass in that moment. Yeah. And I thought to myself, I said, where's that guy been? Right? So if they can bring that out of him more, I think that's the sort of thing that we should see from him on TV. But maybe that's one of the things that's been working against him, is that when they put a microphone in his hand, there's nothing dynamic about him on the microphone. You know, we were talking about MJF before. Not everybody can be like MJF, but it's just not his strong suit. I think that works against him in WWE, and could be why he's in the spot that he's in now instead of being a little higher up on the card. And that's just, look, some guys are better at it than others. It's just not his strong suit. But maybe if he starts having more segments like that, like the one we had backstage last night, maybe things will change.
He's in a good spot, and so is NXT. Yeah. Apparently, we got more breaking news here. Ethan Page is challenging Trick Williams for the NXT Championship at NXT Battleground in Las Vegas. He showed up on NXT tonight.
You know, I think that they're going to force us to start watching and paying more attention to NXT. I think with these moves is what they're going to do, is if we don't have enough wrestling already. I'll tell you what, I like that move a lot. Ethan Page is someone, you want to talk about somebody who is underutilized.
You want to talk about a good promo.
And a good promo, even a great promo even, Ethan Page. Ethan Page, he got himself, there was a period there where he got himself into the best shape of his career. And he was going out there and he was doing stuff. It was him and it was the best men, or the men of the year. It was him and Scorpio Sky. But he was going out there and I didn't really care for what they had him doing. But it was like, man, this guy's a pretty damn good promo. And then he had that match in Canada, I think it was back in December, against Kenny Omega on Collision. And that was a very good match. So he's a very good worker. He's a very good promo. And Tony Khan just couldn't really find anything meaningful, I would say, to do with him. He was clearly very unhappy. They had him in Ring of Honor. And so he left. And I was kind of hoping the WWE and maybe even in NXT that they would give him a look. And so I like that move a lot. I think NXT is actually the perfect place for him. And I'm assuming he's signed. I'm assuming that's what that means. Again, we don't know what the Jordan Grace situation is, but I hear Ethan Page's name. I assume that means that he's part of the NXT roster now. He's the kind of guy who he could dominate there and be a top guy on that brand. And that's great for him, because then he could show the world what he can really do. And then eventually one day, maybe he ends up on Raw or SmackDown. I feel the same way about Ricky Starks.
I think him going to NXT too is the right move. I mean, he could basically own that show if he wanted to.
Oh my God, he's got charisma for days.
Listen, guys, NXT may force us to move the show to Thursday. I don't think that's going to happen, but we got 3,000 in here on a Tuesday night while all this is happening on NXT. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us.
Yes, we do.
And NXT is secondary. But thank you guys so very much for the 3,000. We got 800 likes in the chat. I'd love to see 1,000. So would Solid Monster. And Super Chats are open if you guys want to hang out with us at the end of the show. Any questions, comments, or concerns, we will read them when the show is winding down. Yes.
You know who else has been rumored to possibly soon be wanting to test out free agency?
Who's that?
Hook.
Yes, he's another one.
He's another one who I think would fit in. Actually, NXT would be the best place for him. I don't know what his training has been like. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know who trained him or if he, what school he may have gone to or whatever, but I feel like NXT would be a good place for him to go to.
I think if you ask Taz where he wants Hook to be, just based off what we are seeing, I think he'd say NXT too.
Yeah, yeah. And again, we have nothing to base that on.
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but
no. I don't want to piss off Taz, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Yeah.
Speaking of talent leaving AEW, before we get into some WWE talk, because there's been a lot of AEW talk, we haven't done this in we did it last week, but most of the shows that Jason had been on, it's been very WWE heavy, so it's nice to talk about AEW. But Mark Henry, Jason, he's leaving AEW. He's been with AEW since 2021. He mentioned on Busted Open Radio this week that his time in AEW is over, and he stated that his contract with AEW is set to expire. He wanted to address the matter live on his platform, and he mentioned that Tony Khan expressed his happiness and pride in what they achieved together, a sentiment Henry shares. Henry appreciated his time at AEW, but felt like it was time to focus on themarkhenry.com and his remarkable brand, so he decided to not renew his contract. Now, he said that the decision was mutual and based on the understanding that he could not dedicate 100% of himself to AEW. He emphasized the positive experiences that he had with the company, and he tried to help as many people as possible. He did mention that he is not leaving pro wrestling entirely, but he needs time to work on some projects before returning full force. Now, I got the good old brain working, and I remember Mark Henry mentioned something back in 2021. I'm not sure how many people remember this, but Jason, he said back in 2021 about Sting joining AEW. He said, Sting is one of those guys that if there's anyone out there in this world, I'd appreciate if you tweeted this out. Sting is a credit to the elder statesman in wrestling. He has made me feel like there's a lot I can still offer, not just behind the scenes, but possibly in the ring. I don't know when that's going to be, but I've said it before. I want to wrestle again before it's all said and done. I want to wrestle in 4 decades, and that time is upon us. End quote. Now, before I give the floor to you, Jason, I will say, personally, I don't want to see Mr. Henry in the ring as an active in-ring performer. Maybe for a one-off match, if the story is right, if it makes sense. I will say that. But where I think Henry would thrive, I do think, personally, he would thrive in that developmental system in WWE. I think he's got an unbelievable sense of knowledge. I think he's got an unbelievable just knack for talent. I think he knows what type of talent WWE would need, or pro wrestling for that matter needs. I think he's got a great eye for talent scouting. I think that's where his bread and butter is going to be. Not so much in the ring, but do you want to see Mark Henry, or do you think, I should say, a better line of question, do you think Mark Henry will get back in the ring for a match here, a match there, before he winds his career down?
I think that we will see him back for one match at some point, and that's it. I think his time in the ring has come and gone. I had the chance to sit down with him and talk to him in Philadelphia. I interviewed him WrestleMania weekend. And one of the things that we talked about was, and I asked him about, his knack for scouting. And some people may not know this, but, Bianca Belair was discovered by Mark Henry. And what he will do is, and Jade is another one, Jade Cargill. But he'll slide into someone's DMs if he sees, footage of them, some athletic feat that they did, and get a conversation going and say, you know what, I think you'd be great for pro wrestling, and just get a dialogue going. Like he sees things that the average person wouldn't see. And that, I think, comes a lot from his own background. He's a former Olympian and strongman, and obviously a great athlete himself. I think that he would thrive as a scout. We used to hear stories about how WWE would send Gerald Briscoe to, wrestling meets and things of that nature to scout, future talent. And Jim Ross was also part of that whole program in WWE. I think Mark Henry in that role would be invaluable to WWE. Yeah. And so I would have to think there's a pretty decent chance he might end up in the developmental system there in some form or fashion with NXT. And I think that if he does, it's going to be a huge pickup for them, because that more than anything, not that he can't contribute in other ways and offer a lot of insight as far as somebody who had a successful career himself for many years. I'm sure there's a lot of advice that he can impart on people. And we talked a little bit about that, and he's very serious about it. And he's got a knack for it. So if WWE wanted to, kind of get back in the Mark Henry business, and they said, look, what's the best way we can bring this guy back in? I think that's it right there. And I think that it would only be a plus for their developmental system. But in the ring, because he's also had a lot of injuries as well, over the years. And so I don't see him coming back for any kind of proper run. But if there was a story to get him back in the ring for that one last match so that he can wrestle in that decade and say that he was able to come back and go out on his terms, I think that would be great for him. He debuted, it was in 1996. So, he's been in the business for a long time. And unfortunately, a lot of his run was plagued by injury. That Hall of Pain run came fairly late in his career. I fucking love that run.
He was fucking unbelievable.
Oh my God. That's the Mark Henry. If we would have seen that guy 5 years earlier, he would have been a beast. He would have had a much longer run. So even that run, unfortunately, I think he suffered a knee injury. It got cut short. But that Hall of Pain stuff was fantastic. So, he was plagued by injuries. I'm so glad he had that World Heavyweight title run. I still remember when he beat Randy Orton for the belt. Because, shocked a lot of people. Maybe not Jinder Mahal shocked, like when Jinder Mahal beat Randy Orton. That was shock in a very, very different way. I was happy for Mark Henry, though, when he won that title and he was able to get that run. So, at most, maybe a match. But I think his real value is behind the scenes.
Did AEW drop the ball on him? Did Tony Khan not utilize him in a better way? He's been signed since 2021. You're mentioning how he's got this eye for talent. Yeah. And AEW has one of the good things that Tony Khan has done is he utilizes his veterans very well. That's something that he's really kind of made into a science over there. WWE doesn't usually bring in the legends and utilize them at all on screen. Tony Khan has found a way to make it work, and it's usually fucking great when he does. I could have seen Mark Henry on TV in that type of role, in a managerial role or a corner man for someone like a Powerhouse Hobbs. Did he drop the ball on him doing something like that? And would you have liked to see him do something like that on AEW TV while he was there?
I still think his real value would have been behind the scenes. And I think that what I just described to you, which is what I think WWE would probably do with him, that's what Tony Khan should have been doing with him. And I don't just mean because in the back, he would give advice to people in the back. He said anybody that, wanted to ask questions or, he that was already happening. But I don't know that there was ever anything formal where Tony Khan was sending him out to events to go scout. Because they don't have their own developmental system. Ring of Honor is basically their fucking developmental system at this point. They don't have the kind of system that WWE has. They don't have that kind of infrastructure. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe they need something like that. I know Dustin Rhodes runs his own wrestling school. I don't know that it has any sort of direct association with AEW. So maybe that's something they need to start thinking about doing more of. Look, remember when they brought him in, they tried him out as an announcer, and it didn't work out. It just wasn't the role for him. Remember when CM Punk came back on Rampage? Mark Henry was on commentary. Mark Henry was marking out, no pun intended. He was marking out on commentary. I remember when Punk was coming out, they were at the, I guess it was the Allstate Arena. And, it wasn't the Allstate Arena. It was, what was the arena where Punk came back? The United Center. Yeah. So you had 14,000 people and everybody's going nuts. And they showed that one fan in the crowd who was crying. And he was putting his hand out. Remember that fucking guy? Yeah. God bless that guy. So, and then Mark Henry on commentary is I think it was shit. He was you could hear he lost himself for a second. And that's the one commentary moment from Mark Henry that I will always remember. But it just wasn't the role for him. So that's when they transitioned him into the guy who's it's time for the main event. And that was his big thing on Rampage. But nobody watches fucking Rampage now. So nobody would even know he was on there. You could have used him, I guess, in a managerial role. I don't even know if it's the sort of thing he would have wanted to do. I kind of feel if he wanted to do it, he would have done it. Tony used Arn Anderson in that way and Tully Blanchard. I would think if Mark wanted to, he could have gone to Tony and said, hey, I got this idea, and he probably could have done it. So maybe he didn't want to, but
it probably would have made the itch to wrestle worse, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it has that effect on guys, but I still feel his real value is when it comes to scouting and recruiting and what he can do behind the scenes. Because when I first found out about some of the people that he helped kind of discover and recruit, I was man, I said, this guy, he's sort of a hidden gem for them. But how much of that he was doing with AEW, I don't know. I mean, I don't get the impression that
probably nothing.
There was any.
I mean, he's got quite the track record. If Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are on his list, so
well, yeah. I mean, Bianca alone. Yeah. I mean, look at the way she took to it. So. That's the role for him. And I think anybody, whether it's WWE or anybody else, who can utilize him in that way is going to be much better off for it.
Couple of WWE news and notes here. We'll start off with this one because it feels like eons ago where we talked about this after the long weekend we had to endure with pro wrestling. This was announced earlier in the week. WWE is moving SummerSlam in 2026 to a 2-night event, and this has sparked excitement. It has sparked interest. It sparks concern and questions from a lot of people, and rightfully so. But WWE announced that August 1st and August 2nd, 2026, Minneapolis is getting SummerSlam. They were rumored to get WrestleMania in 2025. That's not happening. It's going to Vegas. So they made good for Minneapolis to get...
It was never happening.
Yeah, it was never happening.
It was never happening.
So now we get Minneapolis with a 2-night SummerSlam instead of a 2-night WrestleMania. This was announced by Triple H, Paul Triple H Levesque, they now call him, sharing the news on social media. SummerSlam 2026 will be the promotion's second premium live event to be hosted across 2 nights, following in the footsteps of WrestleMania, which the first 2-night WrestleMania took place in 2020 as a precaution in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Minneapolis will host SummerSlam in 2026. Like we said, had sights set on WrestleMania 41 And right now, WrestleMania next year is in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. That's April 19th and April 20th over Easter weekend. Jason, SummerSlam 2026 is going to be a huge show. And the first time, I believe this says here, the biggest wrestling event in the history of Minneapolis. It won't be the first, though. Notable WWE shows to come out of the City of Lakes includes SummerSlam 1999, Judgment Day 2005, Bragging Rights 2010, which I would like to forget.
Oh my God, bragging. How can we forget Bragging Rights?
And WWE TLC in 17 and 19. Now, my first...
Now you remember what happened on that SummerSlam 99 show?
What happened on that show?
Jesse Ventura, the governor. He was the referee for the main event.
Oh, well, he's discussing a comeback in WWE too.
Well, yeah, but not on commentary. See, I miss him on commentary.
Yes.
I think they're talking about a Legends deal.
Yes, he was definitely one of the voices of my childhood for sure.
Yes.
I initially met this news with excitement, and I think it's great. Now, the excitement also comes with precaution because I am of an old school mentality. I am definitely over a quality over quantity type of individual. And I understand that WWE is in a day and age where they're making more money than ever before, and they're going to continue to keep that money coming in. And if it's going to 2 nights for SummerSlam, who the fuck is going to stop them, honestly? But the thing that I am concerned with is, does this potentially lead to other shows under the Big Five umbrella getting the 2-night treatment? Because what is going to stop a WWE from saying, hey, man, we have 2 Royal Rumbles. We could do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. Hey, man, we have 2 Money in the Banks. We could do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. Hey, guys, we got 2 War Games. We could do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. Now, I don't think it's going to reach that extent, but, again, who's going to stop them? My question to you, Jason, is I'm excited about it, but I think SummerSlam should be the end of the line for 2-night pay-per-views. WrestleMania and SummerSlam should be it. SummerSlam, in most cases, is the WrestleMania of the summer. It usually never felt like a WrestleMania in the summer because WWE hyped it up as such and it never really delivered. Now it does. They stop here with this because if you do any more, then I feel like it's going to take away from the appeal and the luster of a 2-night WrestleMania, and I feel like WrestleMania should be a standalone show and it should be the top of the top. Nobody should top WrestleMania, and nothing should be like it. That's my concern here with SummerSlam going 2 nights.
Well, I kind of felt that way about WrestleMania being a stadium show. And now all the big shows are stadium shows.
Yeah.
That also takes a little bit of the luster off of WrestleMania. I agree in that I don't have an issue with it. And I think if you kept it to Mania and SummerSlam, and honestly, if it extended to the Royal Rumble even, like I feel like that would be okay. My fear is the same fear that you share, which is that I don't want to see Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and SummerSlam and Money in the Bank and Survivor Series, all of them, the big 4 and then some, go 2 nights, because then it's just too much. But it doesn't matter what you and I think. The only thing that matters is, and I think this is the key that some people are missing. First of all, the reason this is happening is this is a make good for Minneapolis. Okay, yeah. Minneapolis thought they were going to get WrestleMania. They didn't get WrestleMania. They had egg on their face. And I think, why would they announce it so soon? Why would they announce it this early? When have they ever announced something like this, let alone for SummerSlam? More than 2 years in advance. Dude, we haven't even hit 2024 SummerSlam yet, let alone 2025. Because I think they wanted to just placate them and make it very clear, like, we've got this locked in. We're not going to renege. Nothing is going to change. We're going to announce it now. So we're locked in. Not only are you guys getting SummerSlam, we're going to make it 2 nights. So it may not be WrestleMania, but you'll get the economic boost from the 2 nights instead of just the 1 night. I absolutely think that's the main reason why this is happening. But I don't think we can discount the possibility that there could be other reasons for it, including, and the timing is curious because it was a couple of weeks ago, they had the chairman of the Entertainment Authority over in Saudi Arabia on Ariel Helwani's show, talking openly about the fact that they are trying to bring a Royal Rumble and or a WrestleMania over to Saudi. And when he was talking about it, he said they're in discussions for 2026 or 2027. Now, I don't know that anything is locked in. I don't know that anything is etched into a stone tablet, but I think that they may think that there's at least a decent possibility that there could be a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble, but there could be a WrestleMania coming to Saudi in 2026. Which, if you would have said that to me even a year ago, I would say there's no fucking chance. But I think that in this era with Endeavor now, all the old rules, they don't really apply anymore. Because the number one thing, and not that this wasn't the most important thing anyway, they're a business and they're in business to make money, but it's all about making money now. So any way they can do that, whether it's any kind of sponsorship, you want to put logos on the mat, you want to put Prime logo on the mat, let's do it. You know, like any way that they can make money, they're going to make money. And if Saudi Arabia is giving them $50 million, supposedly, for the 2 shows they do each year, so $100 million a year for fucking Crown Jewel, how much money do you think they would pay WWE for a WrestleMania?
It could be 500 million.
Yeah, maybe at least. I mean, it would be something. I feel like it would be a figure that would be irresistible to them. And maybe part of the calculation here is, okay, we want to also make sure we have a big event like that is central here to the US if we're going to have WrestleMania that year overseas. That could be part of the calculation too. I just think the timing of the comments that guy made a few weeks ago, it can't be ignored. At the end of the day, business-wise, I think it makes sense. The product is so hot right now. Do we know whether the product is going to be hot in 2026? We don't. It would be incredible. If they could keep this hot streak up into 2026, I mean, more power to them. We don't know how hot the product will or won't be at that point, but it's kind of like these ticket prices that people are bitching about for Clash at the Castle. You know, you look at them and they're astronomical. But if they're not selling, then the prices will come down. They're selling these tickets at these prices because people are buying them up. So at the end of the day, it's all about supply and demand. If the demand is there, right? Here's what we will know. If they do a 2-night SummerSlam in a stadium, I think it's US Bank Stadium. I think it's the home of the Vikings.
Yes.
Okay. It's not WrestleMania, but if they can fill that stadium or mostly fill that stadium and have no problem selling tickets for both nights, that tells them everything they need to know. And that's when you see Royal Rumble 2 nights and maybe Money in the Bank 2 nights. It's almost like a proof of concept type of thing where it's like, all right, we're going to use this as a test. And if we can sell tickets like we would for Romania and we're making money left, right, and center, they are going to do more of these. Whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, I think it is too much. But if it's selling, that's all that matters.
Listen,
you know, that's their number one thing.
It works creatively, too. I mean, no matter how people want to look at it, you know, a lot of people are complaining, oh, well, Triple H is booking 5 matches for a 3-hour pay-per-view. They don't really give you, the biggest bang for your buck like Tony Khan does with fucking 11 matches in 6 hours. Like,
it's 2 different products, though.
It's 2 different products. But what I'm saying is, I feel like that would be the answer to not only Triple H having a little bit more creative freedom, getting everybody else that he couldn't fit on the show or didn't want to factor into the show on the show. And instead of 5 matches, we get 5 or 6 matches one night, 5 or 6 matches the other. I'm not going to really sit here and complain. You're not going to sit here and complain because we're going to make double the money for it as content creators. So I'm in agreement for it. I just don't want to be in a position where, and who's going to stop them? Like we said, well, Royal Rumble goes 2 nights, Money in the Bank, Survivor Series, Elimination Chamber. I get why they're doing it, but I do think creatively it's going to make a lot of sense for Triple H as well to open himself up to having more talent on these shows and having those stories play out a little bit longer. And, you know, a lot of people didn't really think of it before we got to WrestleMania. Look at how they played night 1 going into night 2. It was its own story going into night 2. So they could do something like that with somebody else, have something happen on night 1 that correlates and transitions to night 2. That opens up more creative freedom on top for Triple H to go out there and have fun with. So, listen, there's more positives to me than there is negatives.
Yeah, there is. And again, we're getting ahead of ourselves as far as them doing it for all these other events. They may or they may not. We don't know. But to tie it back into what I was just talking about how at the end of the day, it all comes down to money. And I think also what you're going to start to see, we know what they do with WrestleMania. They have basically a bidding process, and if your city wants WrestleMania, you put in a bid and they're competing against each other. We're going to start to see that more often with all these other shows as well. It's not just going to be WrestleMania. It's going to be Royal Rumble. It's going to be SummerSlam. Every PLE. It doesn't even have to be the Big Four. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the Big Four is Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Money in the Bank. Because Survivor Series, I know now they have War Games, and that's great. Survivor Series has not been one of the Big Four for a very long time. And I know some people don't like hearing that, but too bad. That's the way it is. But I'm not just talking about the Big Four. All the PLEs. That's their long-term goal, right? Yeah. They want people to pay to bring these events there. Doesn't matter where. Could be in this country, could be out of the country. So that's another thing you're going to start to see more of that. What it really illustrates to me, and I said this on my podcast on Sunday, and we already kind of knew this. It's not like this is some new concept, but I hear about stuff like this, and it just drives it home because they already have registration open for the ticket pre-sale for this, and it's so far in the future. I mean, tickets are not on sale yet, but now more than ever, it really is the brand that sells. This is not about The Rock. This is not about Cody Rhodes or Roman or any one attraction. It's not about one big match that's announced for the show. It's the WWE brand. It's the initials. That's what sells. It's like it's an experience now. And that's what people are buying up all these tickets for. They have built this brand so big and so strong that all they need to do is slap the initials on, and that's what sells. And it's not really any one individual attraction. So the days of WWE being so heavily reliant on that one top star, we grew up at a time when Hulk Hogan was the big star, right? He was the golden goose. And then you had Stone Cold and you had The Rock and John Cena. Those days are dead. Like, those days are gone. You'll have your top names, Cody and Roman and people like that, but God forbid if something happened to them, or if one day the day came where they left, the machine rolls on. Like, it's not as big of a deal as it would have been years ago. And so that really is what this illustrates to me. They're announcing these shows now so far in advance, and they're putting these tickets on sale at these astronomical prices, but it really isn't about the talent. It really is about the WWE brand name.
Is Minneapolis the first to get a 2-night SummerSlam? Because they haven't announced 25 yet. They announced 26, 2 nights in Minneapolis. Is that the first time we see it, or do they do the announcement for 25 and they also go 2 nights, wherever that event may be?
I'm thinking 26 will be the first. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We don't know. I just assume they already had 25 either locked down or they already have a place in mind for it. I'm thinking 26 will be the first time, but we'll see. We'll see. It's just amazing, though, when I look at some of these shows and the places they're going in France. I mean, the crowd in France. I wouldn't mind if they brought Backlash back to France every year. Yeah, if they're going to have a crowd like that. But I love the international shows just because the energy from the crowd is so infectious and it just makes the shows so much more fun. That's something I want to see them do more of. I'd love to see them go to just countries and places they've never been before. Clash at the Castle next month. How do you think that crowd is going to be in Scotland? Probably for the whole show, but especially when Drew McIntyre walks out. Like, how fucking great is that going to be?
There may not even be a building left.
Well, if CM Punk fucks him over, then is he going to make it out alive? That's what I want to know.
Are we ready to have a discussion about maybe having AEW go to 2 nights for some of their pay-per-views? Because one of the criticisms was, and I've seen a lot of people complaining about, from both sides, WWE pay-per-views are lame and they don't give you the biggest bang for your buck. Tony Khan charges $50 and he gives you 5.5 hours. That's well worth your $50. But I'm like, all right, guys, you could give me fucking 6 matches in 3 hours and have it be fucking unbelievable. Yeah, and I'd still be at $50 worth of my money.
By the way, that was another thing I took shit for the other night because I was debating, and I shouldn't have done it because you fall into this trap sometimes where you, I'm sure you're well aware, you get into these debates on Twitter with these trolls and these idiots, but yeah, I got so much shit for making a comment the other day about how I paid $50 for the show. And I got message after me, you paid $50 for the show? Look at this guy. He's actually paying for the pay-per-view, man. You actually paid for the show? I'm watching a free stream. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, I can afford to pay for the show. So I pay for the fucking show. Plus, it's part of my job with what I do. So, yeah, I pay for the show. And it's like, I feel like I'm from some foreign land sometimes, when I interact with some of these people, like Like I'm like a stranger in a strange world here. Like I did something wrong by actually paying for the pay-per-view. And this apparently was some great offense that made me like a fucking pariah or something. So I don't know if it's just because there's a lot of crazy WWE fans as well. You get it on both sides. I don't want to make it sound like just the AEW freakazoids are the only freaks in the wrestling community here, but my God, there are just so many people who are, I don't know what it is, if it's brain worms or exactly what it is, because you get the nice people who you can actually interact with and you can debate and have normal kind of civilized conversations and debates with. But then you get like the guys that are on the extreme, like one team or the other team, and God forbid you say something negative about one team. It's like fucking gang warfare.
Well, you were supposed to be with us, man. What happened?
Yeah, okay. I remember, JD used to be one of us. And, now look at him, man. He's changed. He's not the same guy anymore. What happened to him?
Man.
Fucking hey, my God.
I mean, but are we really? I know this was a big topic of discussion. I'm going to bring it up because I listen, man. I feel very, very strongly about this. I feel like with what Double or Nothing, we're going to use this as a prime example. Some of that shit on the show did not need to be on the show. I'm sorry.
No.
Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta could have been saved for fucking Rampage or Dynamite.
Jericho,
Hook, and Shibata could have been saved for Collision. I mean, I'm going to go out there and listen. I know Tony Khan would never not have fucking Jon Moxley on the show, but Jon Moxley and Takeshita was an eliminator match. It wasn't even a fucking title match, and it was on the show. Why? At least give it to us on television and then make it a championship match. But you don't want to beat Jon Moxley, so that's not going to happen. I would even go out there and say, and I might be in the minority, and this Trios Championship match could have been on Dynamite. We could have had that show cut by 2-3 matches at best and save ourselves an hour and 15 minutes. But the show ended my time at 12:40. Jason and I both cut our streams for the night and did it the next day because it's draining. And the discussion needs to be opened up. Does AEW need to cut back on what they actually do on pay-per-view? The elitists think, well, Tony Khan's giving us $50 worth of pay-per-view, but he can give you $50 worth of pay-per-view for 6 matches that actually have story and are fucking great. I would have paid $50 for NXT Black and Gold takeovers, and they were 2.5 hours at tops. Yeah. So why are you making this a discussion now? But all of a sudden, a 2-night SummerSlam is too long for people. Like, what are you drinking? Honestly, seriously.
Look, I made this point that $50 for an AEW pay-per-view. Some people don't want to pay it, or they, whatever, their finances are what they are. Perfectly understandable. I paid a lot more than $50 to go to the WrestleManias that I went to. And there were WrestleManias that I went to. I mean, I'm thinking of 33 and 35 stand out to me. Okay, I was at both those shows. And even though I paid good money for my tickets to go to those shows, I was begging for the shows to be over, okay, by the time that night was finally done. And those shows would have been so much more enjoyable if they would have cut 2 or 3 matches even from those cards. It's not like, man, I'm paying X amount of money for my ticket, and so I want every match you could possibly, I want you to shove so many matches down my throat that night that I'll choke on them. You know what I mean? Like, no. First of all, I want the matches on the card that are going to be the matches that make the most sense and belong on that card. And then I want you to make the most of what you have. Less is more. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in less is more when it comes to this stuff. And you don't want to overload people because then you can burn them out. Burnout is a very real thing. I'm feeling it this weekend, as a matter of fact. Burnout is a very real thing. But again, those shows, people paid hundreds and in some cases, if they're ringside, maybe thousands of dollars to go to those shows. I don't think any of those people would have complained if you would have shortened them a little bit, cut a few matches, maybe given some more time to the bigger matches on the show. Nobody would have complained. So it goes both ways. It doesn't matter what promotion. We're not picking on AEW because it's AEW. No. This is kind of a universal rule here that you can burn people out. Less is more, and you don't have to overload these shows with so many matches that the pre-show starts at 7 and you're going off the air at 12:30 in the morning. It's too much. You don't need to do it.
I made the point of, and I don't want to use Copeland in this instance, but I mean, how many people are talking about Copeland now because he's injured, but how many people were legitimately talking about that spot at the end of the night after what we saw fucking 6 hours later? Not many people. But my point that I made on Monday was, look at Mercedes and Willow and what happened at the end of the match with Stat turning on Willow. They immediately did the turn and went right to the next fucking segment, right to the next match, and they did not linger and let that moment breathe. If that moment was on a pay-per-view that had 6 matches, 7 matches at best, and they had more time allotted to give that moment, it would have been a bigger deal. People would have remembered it. People would have been talking about that. That's months worth of payoff that AEW just had happen and then goodbye, disappeared like it was nothing. If that happened on a show that was actually 3 hours, 3.5 hours, that moment specifically would have stood out more. Nobody's talking about that now. In the grand scheme of things, 6 hours, you got fucking people, vehicular homicide attempted, fucking burning, flamethrowers, people being lit on fire. I mean, people breaking their legs, jumping off a 25-foot steel cage. I mean, holy shit, guys.
They give you a little bit of everything on that show.
I mean, I'm just saying, moments like that could be allowed to breathe and would have been a little bit more important on a shorter show than it was on a 6-hour show. They need to be shortened. I don't care what you guys think $50 is worth. Jason and I are more quality over quantity than anything, and I feel sorry, buddy, that you had to sit at WrestleMania 35. That's awful.
Yeah, I got a lot of sympathies from people for that one. That was the one, by the way. They had the Randy Orton AJ Styles match, and there was a light that was shining, like the whole section. There was a light shining in our faces. So I couldn't see anything, and now I'm seeing dots everywhere because I have lights in my face. So I got up. And I figured I would go like into the concourse, like inside. And at least for that match, I'll just watch it. I'm sure they have it on like the monitors or something. And they didn't have it. They weren't actually showing you the match on the inside. So I completely missed that match. And then I think Randy Orton went on social media. It was either that night or the next day. Because again, so many people were complaining about it. And he's like, sorry, you guys missed my match. It was actually really good. Sorry you had to,
of course,
look at a light shining in your face the entire time. That whole show was... That whole show was all about Kofi Mania. Like, I will say, being in the stadium for that, like, when Kofi won that belt, that was a moment.
Yeah, that was.
And there were, that was a moment. There were a lot of people who were crying and were very emotional. I was glad I was there for that. But then I found myself sitting there, and I think it started to rain. It was after midnight. Ronda had come out with Becky and Charlotte. That match had just gone on, and I'm like, just get me out of here.
What about 33? That was Orlando, right?
33 was Orlando. With a pre-show that started around 5, and The Undertaker, if you remember the end of that show, he lost in that terrible match to Roman Reigns, and took his robe off and his hat off, left it in the ring. That was 12:15 in the morning. Jesus. In the Florida sun. I
was not at the show. I was in Orlando doing other things, but yes, I remember how hot it was down there. Yeah.
I will say though, the stage for WrestleMania 33, it's either that or 39. Fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, just to see that in person, like, it looked majestic. The card itself, the only thing I would say, 33, the Hardy Boys return.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, but the gist of the matter is, guys, AEW pay-per-views happening 4 or 5 times a year at 5 hours was warranted. Now they're going 9, potentially even more than that, and you're still doing 5.5 hours each show? No, thank you. They got to be shortened by at least an hour and a half. I'm sorry. I do want to get into this one last thing. I guess we'll get to the super chats. I did want to talk about Gunther and Randy Orton. I want to talk about Becky Lynch too, but we won't spend too much time on Gunther and Randy Orton. The rematch is happening. We don't know when. We don't know where. We don't know if the King of the Ring Championship will be on the line. We don't know what the whole situation is going to be. But I said that Gunther and Randy Orton, with the ending that was, I don't think that it was planned that way. I do think that it was a mental error. I don't see how it could be a mental error. I mean, you're talking about 2 guys that the amount of errors that they probably made in their career, I could count on one hand.
And still have fingers left over.
I mean, Jesus, I don't know how they could have made such an error, but they did something that wouldn't have been done in the Vince era. They actually alluded to it. They made it into a story, and they're going to take it and run with it. So I appreciate that. They called it out. Vince would have ignored it. Where do they go with this, Jason? Do we get a Gunther Randy Orton match that is for the crown? Do we get a do-over? Or do we get a rematch that, in my opinion, sees Randy Orton get screwed out of the crown again, or the match again, and it only yields him a championship match because of bloodline interference or some shenanigans, and he'll get a championship match against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam via that route? How do you see this playing out?
Well, I was of the mindset that you do the match, because Triple H made it very clear the decision is final. Like, Gunther is King of the Ring, and I mean, you could do it for the crown. If you wanted to defend the crown, I think that would be stupid. So he's king of the ring. That's not going to change. But because his shoulder was up off the mat and because there was a world championship match at stake in that match, it would only be fair that if Randy Orton was to beat Gunther, he may not be king of the ring, but he would at least win a shot at his brand's title at SummerSlam. And then if he wins, that's how you get to Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. If we assume that The Rock is not going to be back for SummerSlam, Cody and Randy is the match I want to see.
Yeah.
So we could get Gunther challenging for the Raw title, and we can get Randy challenging for the SmackDown title. The more I think about it, though, especially if it was not meant to go down that way, I don't think Triple H is going to want to beat Gunther. No. And so what I would do is I would have Gunther beat him again. And I would have Gunther beat him maybe even fair and square. It doesn't even have to be bloodline interference. He could beat him fair and square in the middle of the ring to show he is the true king of the ring. He is the dominant force. But you use that loss as a way to begin the Randy Orton heel turn. Because Randy Orton, since he came back at War Games and his team won, he challenged for the title at the Royal Rumble, and he lost. He was in the Elimination Chamber, and he lost. He was in a triple threat match for the U.S. title at WrestleMania, and he lost. He was in a tag team match at Backlash with Kevin Owens, and he lost. And it was Kevin Owens who took the fall, not him. And he was in the King of the Ring, and he lost. So if he goes now to Clash at the Castle and he loses again, at what point does it become a case where it's like, this guy's going to snap? And when he does, he could turn on Kevin Owens. You could do that match with Money in the Bank. And from there, he goes on to challenge Cody for the title, maybe at SummerSlam. That's what I would do. Like, you bring out the old Randy Orton. Fans may not want to boo him, but I think he's good enough at what he does that he could get the fans to turn. And that's what I would do.
Are you ending the bloodline Randy Orton thing? Is that over with at that point then? Because I figured that he would still want some sort of revenge. Owens is going to be back. They're going to want some sort of revenge on Solo and Tama Tonga. You're just moving away from that, moving Randy onto the world title?
Yeah, I don't think you need to really drag that out much longer. I mean, you could drag it out for a few more weeks, but, he beat Tama in the King of the Ring. That was kind of his revenge.
Yeah.
And he beat him fair, too, which surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be as clean as it was. But he already beat Tama Tonga. I have no appetite to see him feuding with Solo Sikoa. I mean, does that do anything for you? It doesn't do anything for me.
No.
I don't give a shit about that. So, yeah, I mean, I think the quicker you can move him away from the bloodline stuff, the better. And if he was to go heel, again, he could fight Kevin Owens. Whether it's at Money in the Bank, maybe that's the SummerSlam match, and they have something else in mind for Cody. But I would hope that all roads eventually lead, no pun intended, I hope all roads eventually lead to Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. That could be a WrestleMania match, if we're being honest. But if The Rock wants Cody, then The Rock is probably going to get what The Rock wants. Unless, of course, he pitches the idea that he pitched at the beginning of the year, as Brian Gewirtz said, and then thankfully common sense prevailed there. Thank God The Rock did not get what he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that. Knowing Cody and Rock next year, I can't wait to see how many more problematic situations Brian Gewirtz comes up with next year when Cody's in the main event.
I think you and I are going to have a lot of juicy content to come out of that. I can't wait. I can bring on the politics, man. This is great. This is great.
What a fucking geek, man. Oh my God. I'm not even I have that in the notes. We'll talk about that some other time, man. I mean, it's old news, but problematic. Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble. Sure thing, guys. Sure thing. Yeah, love the way he thinks.
You know what the most amazing part about that is, I will say, because again, he was on Busted Open Radio and he made that comment about he was of the opinion as he was in these meetings, at these creative meetings at the beginning of the year, that you're gonna have Cody win the Rumble. That's problematic. Yeah, no shit. But it sounded to me, because if you think about it, if they would have gone through with their plan as it was originally laid out, and this is according to him, Rock was going to wrestle Roman at WrestleMania, and then his idea, as he said, would have been you just have CM Punk win the Royal Rumble, which would have been a fucking disaster, of course, looking at what happened. But you have CM Punk win the Royal Rumble and then wrestle Seth Rollins. What does Cody Rhodes do?
That's what I asked.
And
he said something along the lines of, you guys don't want to know the plans for Cody if that's the case. I'm like, what the fuck are the plans then?
Right, so I was going to say, so he made that comment about, and you don't want to know what he told Dave LaGreca. If I told you what the plan for Cody Rhodes really was at WrestleMania, you would hate it more than life itself. And I was thinking, it was Meltzer, but there were other people as well, other than Dave, who had teased the idea that Cody was going to be written out of WrestleMania this year. They might have done like an injury angle or something to write him off, and he may not have been on the card at all. And that's the only thing I can think of. Like, what? You could put him in the ring with anybody from the roster, but like worse than anything imaginable. Was The Rock's plan to write Cody Rhodes out of WrestleMania completely this year so that he could get the main event with Roman Reigns and possibly beat Roman Reigns and win the title and then vacate it and go back to Hollywood? Like, in the annals of terrible ideas that I could think of, it just goes from bad to worse to somehow even worse. Like, I can't fathom that would have been the actual idea that they would have okayed.
Their investment in Cody Rhodes would have been bankrupt at that point.
It's just it's unbelievable. I mean, you're gonna write
not even calling up John Cena for Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Nothing.
Yeah, we're just gonna write him off the show completely. We'll have Shinsuke Nakamura spray some kind of fucking acid in his face because they were feuding at the time, which makes me wonder if maybe that was part of the plan. They were gonna really do some kind of injury type situation with him to protect him so he wouldn't have to be, in some like undercard match. What a fucking terrible idea that would. You talk about taking a story that had been built up over a period of more than a year, really, 2 years, really, since he came back to the company, and just completely taking a dump all over it. It's just unbelievable to even think about.
And listen, guys, I don't want to scare people here tonight, but imagine Triple H loses favor with management. Who the fuck you think's going to be the head writer over there? This geek. Gewirtz.
Oh my God. Rock's gonna own that place one day.
He's gonna own it, and Gewirtz is gonna be writing the fucking shows. And I feel like JD of 2016 is gonna reemerge again in 2028. Please stay away.
Like a sea monster.
Ridiculous. The only thing problematic is him anywhere near the fucking product. Get out of here. One more thing we want to talk about, guys, and we'll end with Becky Lynch. This is a hot button topic here. Contract update, as last night people were speculating it was her last match in WWE. Here's a spoiler. It's not. Possible hiatus from the company. Becky Lynch wrestled Liv Morgan last night. Awful match. And an even worse ending in the main event of Monday Night Raw. Got a rematch against Liv Morgan. Lost thanks to the Strowman Express. Steamrolling over Dominic Mysterio. Making the cage door fly into Becky Lynch's face. And Liv Morgan then escaped the cage due to the comedic nature of the match. Lynch is set for a World Championship title match last night. Lost. Liv Morgan then kissed Dominic Mysterio to further that angle. And somewhere Rhea Ripley is not happy. Wade Keller at PW Torch reports that he had also heard from sources originally reported by Fightful that she has not signed the new contract. But Wade Keller says that she had not renewed, backing up Fightful's report. People she's told have said she's not going to AEW imminently, but will be taking a hiatus from WWE. Now, it's unclear what the reason is that she wants to take time off from WWE, whether that be family or needing a break from the grind of the road. Her colleagues believe that Lynch will return to WWE and are confident that they will work out a deal. Now, earlier in the show, she did have a backstage segment with Lyra Valkyria. Lynch did allude to leaving and told her former NXT cohort that keep winning or learning until it's time to walk away. Lynch walked out to the ring and seemingly soaked up the moment and the atmosphere that was the steel cage match. Jason, I mentioned last night that Becky did have a stone cold look. She looked very unhappy. She looked like kind of out of it, what is the term? Spaced out. She looked like she didn't want to be there. Now, I don't think that this is her last match. I do think that it's ridiculous that you're having this woman's contract lapse without signing her, nailing her down to a contract. But the rumor is that Tony Khan and AEW could potentially land Rebecca Quinn and bring her on into the company. Now, it's laughable, I know. The report says that they don't really know why she wants to take time off from WWE. Well, let's break this thing down. Seth Rollins is home. He's recovering from an injury. I'm assuming that he has their daughter. She wants to be home, and she wants to have some family time with everybody being at home at the same time, which is probably a fucking rarity. Second, she's probably beat up, and she wants some rest. Third, she deserves it. Fourth, I feel like with WWE right now and everything that they have going on with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, Becky doesn't really have a place creatively. So she's looking at all these things, tying them all up, saying, you know what, it's probably best for me to go home. The rumor with AEW, Jason, is ridiculous because how many more people does Tony Khan need to bring in? I don't understand how much more money he needs to spend. He's got one of the most loaded rosters, probably the most talented roster that ever existed. I don't know what Rebecca Quinn in AEW would do for anybody. In fact, I feel like it would drive the fan base further away because it's just another ex-WWE talent that he's bringing in and suppressing the AEW talent that he has there now. But she's not going anywhere. And I feel like with Triple H losing Mercedes, he's never going to allow Rebecca Quinn to go to AEW.
No, and I think she's even said before that I think she has no plans of leaving. I think, again, she did also an interview with Ariel Helwani before WrestleMania, I think it was.
Yeah.
And, we could say that, well, her husband works there. It's not like there aren't couples. I mean, look at Rhea Ripley and Buddy Matthews. It's not like there aren't couples that are separated by promotions. It happens. And so you can't say, well, of course, it'll never happen because of that. But they have a young daughter. And I know that Seth re-signed recently, so he's going to be with WWE for the foreseeable future. As far as why she would be stepping away, first of all, her contract, the reports are that her contract is up on June 1st. So at the end of this week, her contract will be up. And she may just want to take some time off for all the reasons that you just mentioned. She just needs a break. She's been running hard. Maybe she wants to just spend quality time with her family, get a little break, and then she'll come back. Maybe they want to expand their family. We don't know, right? You can speculate on any number of things. But at the end of the day, Becky Lynch will find her way back into WWE. I agree with you. She is not going to AEW. She doesn't need to go to AEW. If she wanted the thrill of going somewhere else and working with people that she hasn't worked with before, sure, then she would go to AEW. But she's got a great gig right now where she is. And again, her husband works there too, which makes things so much more convenient, I'm sure. But WWE is her home. And I don't see there being any need for her to leave. They're going to pay her well. I don't know where they are in terms of their negotiations, if there is a sticking point, whether it's money, whether it's schedule. It's not necessarily just a money issue. She's going to get paid. And deservedly so, because she is one of the biggest stars they have in that company. But all this talk about how, Rebecca Quinn is all, I see the memes, she's all elite and all this other stuff. Tony Khan brought in Mercedes. I know you're a big fan of Mercedes. I'm a big fan of hers as well. Going all the way back to the NXT days and that Brooklyn match with Bayley, and she sold me with that match, and she's tremendous, in the ring. But it's not as if, let's not pretend that by bringing her in, it has made any difference at all so far in their business. Or in their numbers, or ratings, or anything like that. It hasn't.
Zero.
You can say the same thing about Okada, and I love Okada. Say the same thing about Will Ospreay. It's not just about bringing in big names. And I think there also is something to be said for this perception of, well, he just keeps bringing in people from the other place, instead of focusing more on the people that he already has there that he's been building up since day one, like a Darby, or an MJF, or a Jack Perry, and people like that. At some point, you do kind of hit your limit of like, all right, we don't need more. We need to just focus on what we have and make that as strong as possible. So does AEW need Rebecca Quinn? No. Does she need them? No. So because of that, it just doesn't make any sense. Not that Tony Khan wouldn't do it. I'm sure he would. I'm sure he'd love to have a conversation. He was thinking about bringing in Bill Goldberg until Goldberg apparently turned heel on him. And so whatever happened there, I'm sure he would.
Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, we dodged a bullet with that one. But at the end of the day, she's going to be right where she is in WWE. I think that it'll be a while before we see her again. I thought that if she stuck around, they might have been building to a tag team title match for SummerSlam, maybe her and Lyra challenging for the titles. I'm sure she'd love to work with Lyra. She's worked with her before. But however long it takes, I think they have a strong enough women's division that they can focus on those women and they'll be okay. It's tough, though, because they lost Rhea Ripley due to injury. Charlotte's still out with an injury. And if Becky goes away, it's a blow. It's not like a death blow, but, it's a blow. I have to hope, though, that they think that Rhea's going to be back soon. I'm hoping for SummerSlam, at least. They'll get her back, and it's not, a case where she's gone for like 9 months or anything like that. So it'll hurt a little bit in the interim, but they'll be fine. And we'll see Becky back soon enough, probably with a big fat contract.
Yeah, Rhea, I'm hoping is back by SummerSlam. Charlotte should be back around that same time, if not around that time. So I think WWE is going to be okay.
And look at the women they have in NXT, by the way. I mean, they're still stockpiled with women down there as well. Yeah. So, yeah, they're not hurting for talent.
Yeah, I honestly think that this is actually going to net Becky Lynch more money, because if she is actually free to do whatever she wants, I don't know how Tony Khan, or if Tony Khan is going to have a discussion with her and offer her something. I'm sure he will offer, and then she'll take that back to who she needs to take it back to and say, hey, this geek offered me all this money. I want at least, say, for example, he offered me 3.5. I want 4. Maybe using them as a negotiation tactic.
That's what Randy Orton did. Yeah. Randy Orton said as much after he signed his new deal with WWE.
Adam Copeland did it too.
Well, yeah. Well, Copeland claimed he did it, though, because out of respect for Vince McMahon. Yeah. So once he realized, like, I could get cleared and I want to do this, he said out of kind of deference to him, I have to at least let him know. And that's when Vince was like, you're not going to work anywhere but here, pal. And then they came to a deal. But with Orton, I think Orton flat out said after he signed his deal, he thanked Tony or something like, yeah, thanks for getting me so much more money. Because it's smart. She doesn't even have to say anything directly. Just kind of let your people leak word that, hey, these two may have had a conversation, and get your money. That's what it's all about. It's about a business. These companies make enough money themselves. Look at the money WWE makes. Do you know how much money the talent makes relative to the company itself? Like how paltry it probably is by comparison. People have talked about that with UFC in terms of fighter pay and stuff. So if you're a talent, do what you got to do, to make as much money as you can, because they don't give a shit. They're making money. You should make money too.
And you guys don't think AEW is good for the business. What's wrong with you guys, man?
Hey,
come on.
Exactly.
Anyway, guys, we had a strong 3,000 plus tonight on a Tuesday night, man. Thank you guys very much. We're going to get into your super chats, and then Jason and I are going to get some much needed rest after this fucking weekend that was pro wrestling. Holy shit. And Friday, we were at House of Glory, man. Friday at House of Glory, Jason and I did commentary for Riddle and Santana. And just a little hog note here. If you guys want to catch us, do our thing. We have Swerve Strickland coming on in at the end of July. What is it, Jason? July 26th?
It is high intensity, July 26th at the NYC Arena. Tickets on sale right now.
Yep. HOGWrestling.net. Or if you guys want to watch us live in the comfort of your own home, Triller TV Plus. You guys can buy the pay-per-view.
We should also let everybody know that if you go to the House of Glory YouTube channel, you can see the full match. Great fucking match with Mike Santana and Psycho Clown.
Yep.
From our last show. So if you missed that, go check it out. It's a hell of a match.
Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. We got over 1,100 likes. Thank you guys very much. There will be no Be the Booker. That's tomorrow night. Make sure you guys go follow Jason on his YouTube channel. I linked his YouTube page in the title and down below in the description. Please go and subscribe and go catch his stuff over there. Always great stuff coming out of the channel over there. Make sure you guys go follow him on social media as well. You see all that stuff linked down in the description as well. Make sure you do that for me on this side, social media, at JD4MNY206, and then hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell for all notifications. And please, make sure you guys go check out all the content. There's plenty of it. Way too much. Maybe too much for you guys to catch up on in one sitting, but it's there. Go check it all out. Blake Meads with a $4.99. He's the first to enter the chat here tonight with a super chat. He says he's lucky he's getting one at all. What are you talking about?
Oh, he's talking about the thumbnail, Tony Khan.
Ah, okay. There you go. Yeah, well, he's going to get something. Whether he likes it or not, he's going to get something. Gabriel Boss, thank you, brother. Rebecca Quinn will debut at All In, and she'll beat Mercedes at All Out to win the title in her debut match. Mercedes' top spot in AEW is in jeopardy. Oh, man.
You got quite the imagination there.
Don't tell the AEW tribalists, man. They won't like that. I don't even think they like Mercedes too much.
No.
Michael Krause with a $2 super chat. Congrats on the show, number 50, TNT. Hard work pays off. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you, brother. David Thiering comes in with a $100 super chat. We love David. He is a beast. What's up, JD and Solo? Add Broken Solid Monsters to the absurd OTS gimmicks list. If you didn't know, last night during Solo's review, he misspoke and said Ted Cruz, a politician, versus Cruz del Toro. Great gag and better than Raw, in my opinion. Have a great discussion. Hashtag TNT. What is going on?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It was, we had that segment where Rey Mysterio, he was cutting a promo in the back, and they recap the angle where Cruz del Toro got beat up by Carlito. This was like weeks ago. But I guess when I was reviewing it, just without skipping a beat, I'm like, Ted Cruz got beaten up in the back by Carlito, and everyone was like, what? Did I miss something here on this show? And then everyone's like, the chat. And I'm like, what? Did I say something? And then I realized what I said, and for whatever reason, they thought I was on like weed brownies or something. Like, I just couldn't stop laughing. And this went on for like 6 minutes. Like, when I edited the audio and I pushed the audio out, I had to cut out like 7 minutes of fucking audio because I don't know what it was. I think I was trying to entertain myself more than Raw did last night. I think that's what it was.
It happens. That happens to me on a random Monday night when the show is pretty lackluster and you get maybe 3 out of the 16 segments that actually mean something. But listen, guys, we are sleep deprived. We are fucking just hanging on by a thread here, so mistakes are gonna happen, okay?
Yeah. We're not in our right frame of mind right now.
Michelle with a $2 super chat. Thank you, David, for the $100 super chat. Michelle with a $2 super chat. Gewirtz is #1 stooge and rocks Kiss My Ass Club. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. VJC1618 with a new membership. Thank you, brother. I don't even want to announce this name, this super chat name. I'm going to botch this completely. $5 super chat. Ricky, Ticky, Bobby, Lobby, Whoopin', Moppin' with a $5 super chat. Thank you. Took me longer to read the fucking name than the super chat. TK better focus on getting the weekly shows better immediately if they want a better deal. The pay-per-views prove they can put on good shows. Yes, Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-per-view. Now, if he was only Mr. fucking weekly television, we'd be in a good place. Don 10 with a $5 super chat. JD and Solomon collaborating for TNT is the equivalent of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino collaborating to make the movie Heat.
Oh, great movie. Fucking great movie. You ever seen that movie?
Yes. I'm a big De Niro guy.
The bank robbery scene?
Yeah.
One of the best action scenes ever filmed.
Yeah. I love Pacino, too. Alucard with a $4.99. What's up, guys? TK is the one to blame. If he focused more on producing better television, he would have gotten a better offer. Dog shit creative is harmful. Listen, man, I said that about the WWE side as well when everybody was claiming the stock prices and this and that. Better creative leads to uptick in everything else. Ticket sales, ratings, merchandise. It all goes back to the creative is what I say. Hopefully he gets it right. Can't be worse than those Monday Night Raws back 3, 4, 5 years ago, though. Can't be worse than that. Hollywood Guy with a $5 super chat. This is probably far-fetched, but if the deal doesn't work out for AEW, could they go to USA Network to compete with SmackDown or maybe not? No. Keep dreaming. James Gender with 6 months. Thank you, brother. Jake Hager and Arn Anderson are both gone from AEW. I knew about Arn Anderson, which I wasn't really surprised by because he's not really factored into anything. But Jake Hager, I didn't hear that.
That's interesting because Cody made a comment recently on Busted Open about how maybe I need a manager.
Wow. Look at that. I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Arn Anderson now is a free agent.
I'll tell you what, though, we're not going to see the Glock on Monday or on SmackDown, rather.
No armed Anderson.
No, it'll just be black screen to death anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter.
That's right.
Gavin Deeth with the 24 months. Love both your guys' work. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you.
Rojo Bear with a $5 super chat. Hoping for edge and a speedy recovery. TK should book a 6-man ladder match to crown the next TNT champion. Who would you guys add? I don't really want to see a ladder match, Rojo. I feel like the ladder match has been kind of done to death, and we've seen way too many of them in the last couple of years. I think a more creative approach would be TK's best option, but what that is, we discussed it earlier in the show. Mm-hmm. Snowman Khan with a $2.79. Darby Allin is definitely the Chris Angel of wrestling. Well, I know Chris Angel is a very good magician, but Tony Khan and Darby Allin, I don't know. I think Tony Khan is trying to make Darby disappear legitimately.
Darby is trying to make Darby disappear. Forget Tony Khan.
Liver Morgan is back with a $10 super chat.
Our favorite.
He says, Dominic has a shot, JD. Really? I mean, the way he kissed Liv Morgan, it looked like he was kissing his fucking grandmother.
He didn't kiss Liv Morgan. She tried to swallow his head, it looked like. I mean, that's what I saw.
Would you complain?
I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying it looked like she was trying to ingest him. That's for the people who actually saw it. I was not one of those people, though. I was live on YouTube, and I had people telling me, "Hey, Solomonster, did you see that Liv Morgan kissed Dominic?" And I said, "No, because they cut my feed."
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully somewhere Rhea Ripley is not really blaming Dominic and has a little compassion for him, but probably not. Or maybe it's all a ploy. Maybe Dominic is luring Liv Morgan into a false sense of security, and then boom, Rhea Ripley comes back. I don't know.
Gotta say that Dominic is living the life right now. He's married. He's legitimately married. He just got married not that long ago. He gets to hang out with Rhea Ripley, and they're always all lovey-dovey. And now he's making out on TV with Liv Morgan.
Look at that.
Look at this guy.
Who's better? Like Brian Cage says, who's better? Nobody.
Yeah.
Kenny, $2 Super Chat. Sexy Red on NXT is the worst thing I've ever seen. I will watch it and probably fast forward that segment. I don't even know who the fuck that is, honestly. Nor do I care. Demeter Bullion, you got it. Yeah, I know, but do you? With a $7.99. Yes, that's his name. He says, Mr. Han Solo Monster, or should I say, the Green Lantern. Like Bruce Lee in The Green Hornet, would Yoshitatsu beat Keith Bruce Lee in War Games? Buckawalk.
Come again? What was that last part? I didn't quite get that.
Demeter, thank you very much, man. We appreciate you. Alucard with a 199. Give me MJF versus Okada. Listen, if it's in the Owen, sign me up and sign Jason up too. I don't think Tony Khan's got the balls to do that. Benjamin Cohen with a 50. Benjamin, what is up, my friend? Hello, JD. Hello, Solomonster. Do you remember me, Ben? Yes, of course we do. How could we forget? Ben, thank you for watching the show, brother. Really appreciate you, and hopefully all is well, man.
Hope you're feeling good, man.
The Juliet, 316, $2 Super Chat. Ted Cruz or Cruz del Toro?
Always Cruz del Toro. I don't know anybody who likes Ted Cruz. Yeah, the Juliet was in the chat last night when I broke, so I'm sure he's having fun.
JP with a $5 Super Chat. I really catch you two live. I always listen to you guys the day after work. TNT is my favorite show of the week. Keep it up, guys. Cheers. Thank you, JP.
Thank you.
Gavin with a 5. Consolidate the FTW and Pride titles into a juniors division. They have another title, the Pride title? What is the Pride title?
I don't know. What is the Pride title?
Please, Gavin, don't be adding any more titles, man.
There could be titles that we're not aware of, by the way, on some of these other shows.
We got fucking tag teams carrying around 3 titles each, man. Holy shit.
You know what? I have a better idea. I have a better idea for the FTW title. Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Give it back to Taz. He can put it back on his mantle at home and just leave it there.
Did you see Jericho was announced for a segment with a new talk show on Wednesday called TV Time?
Yeah.
Get ready, man. Yeah. Gavin, thank you, brother. Vincent Moore with $2 Super Chat. Jordan Grace and Ethan Page on NXT for the titles. Yes, we broke the news here tonight, Vincent. Thank you. Swazi with a 199. MJF running away from the grind. Shaking my head. AEW is a joke. Really? You're one of those, huh? He ain't running away from nothing. Sam Piboon with a 499. Hey, guys, did you know about Ethan Page debuting on NXT? No, Sam, I have no idea.
Yeah, we didn't know.
I didn't know. Anybody else show up that we would know of? Johnny with a 12 months. JD and Solid Monster, you guys are the best. Thank you, Johnny. BW Rosas with a $2 Super Chat. First Grace of TNA and now Ego of AEW on NXT. Yeah, Shawn Michaels is cooking something down there. Peter Pacheco with a 5. Good Hog Show on Saturday. At the indie show here on Friday, Ricky Starks versus QT Marshall. Was supposed to have been Hobbs, but Hobbs is hurt. Now Ricky. Good for Ricky. Still finding some work before he lands in Stanford.
At least he's getting his reps in somehow.
Indigo with a 41 months. Hi, JD and Jason. Made it to 41 months. Wow. It feels like eons ago when I first subbed to you guys. Let the newbies know who I am. LOL. Much respect. Indigo, you've been here for a very long time, man. And I appreciate you greatly. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, Indigo is always very positive, and he's very much a fan of what we do. Yes. I always see him on Twitter, and Indigo's good people.
Peter Pacheco with another 5. With Ethan Page now on NXT, how is he going to do his indie shows he runs in Canada? Thought WWE doesn't allow indie bookings. I didn't know he had an indie. He has an indie promotion?
He has a promotion that he runs, so I'm sure they obviously work something out. Maybe he himself won't be wrestling on them, but I would imagine that either he won't be running it anymore or they work something out.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Anthony Hayes
it's up in Canada.
Oh,
I believe.
I know he's a big toy collector too. That is not going to stop.
No, I didn't know that. It was just like wrestling figures.
Yeah, like Cardona. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anthony Hayes with a $4.99. Ethan Page showed up on NXT and attacked Swerve. You mean Trick? Are we confusing the two now? He's not there yet. Don't get them mixed up.
There was a joke. There was a joke I was going to make, but I'm not going to say it.
Kal-El and Trick Williams. I'm a Trick Williams guy. I was not in the beginning, but I learned my ways.
Trick is money.
Yeah.
Trick is going to be big money for that. I actually think that Trick's ceiling in WWE is higher than Carmelo Hayes.
I agree with you. Yeah. Kal-El with a $5 super chat. I hope hearing this doesn't get old. I really like the old regime with Baydala, but you two are just priceless. Keep it up. You mother effers. Mustangs rule. Listen, Kal-El, Drew is good people. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you the shows weren't great, but Jason's the co-host now. It's hopefully giving you guys a must-see Tuesday night. That's all I care about is your guys' happiness. Brendan Watson with a $4.99. Arn Anderson said on his podcast that he's leaving AEW after his contract expires on the 31st. It's great. Cody might have a new manager. Anthony with a $4.99. Great show. The best. With Charlotte coming back soon, how would you have her return where it creates an impact or something not typical for Charlotte?
How about not going after a title? That would be atypical for Charlotte.
I mean, what else is there for her to do if there is not a championship on the line?
Queen versus Queen. I told you already.
Yes, I know. It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen.
Of course it's going to happen.
Captain Solo with a $5 super chat. He leaves me what looks to be a dog emote. Thank you. I don't know what that is, but it looks cute and fuzzy. Riddick's Classic Arcade with 43 months. Without a doubt, the best wrestling discussion anywhere. So glad you two finally got together for something like this. Tuesdays are can't miss. Riddick, thank you very much, brother. Means a lot.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Ali with a $4.99. He says, and I lost him because YouTube is slowing up here. $4.99. Hey, JD and Solomon, so just want to say I enjoy listening to TNT. It's the best. It helps my anxiety, and thank goodness I subscribe to your channel. Ali, thank you, brother. I'm glad we can offer you guys an escape. Krauser with a 2. Hey, guys, NXT is cooking. All Ego and Jordan Grace. I'm aware, and Jason is as well. Christopher Perez with a $9.99. If Lyra is Liv's next challenge, who there is the main women's babyface on Raw now that Becky is on hiatus, allegedly? It's a good question. I mean, it could be Lyra, but she's nowhere near ready. Io? They may be moving Io into that slot. Maybe Damage Control is finished. Who knows?
Well, Io was very unhappy that Kairi lost her match last night, so there could be a Damage Control. I mean, Damage Control has been, how long have they been together for at this point? Like 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
they're dead.
I think their time is just about up.
And Kairi got new theme music, so hopefully that signals the singles run for her too.
Yeah.
Cody Snyder with a 5. I need MJF versus Randy Orton before Randy retires. The Prodigies. Randy says he wants to wrestle till 50, so we may actually get that at some point.
As long as when he gets to 50, he doesn't climb to the top of the cage and jump off.
No.
Then I think he'll be okay.
Michelle with a 2. Does Cody wrestle at Clash? If so, against whom? That is the question on everybody's mind, Michelle, because we are legitimately 3 weeks away from Clash of the Castle, and we have no opponent. I guess we'll find out on Friday, but some people on social media tend to believe it's AJ Styles. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they have that show and don't have Cody on the show. I mean, we know he's not going to be in the main event. We know who's in the main event on that show.
Yeah.
You know, it has me thinking that they wanted Logan specifically for Saudi, or they wanted him on that show. And so that's why they pivoted to him. But then now maybe that's done, they may, kind of flip back over to AJ. They have the storyline going on with him and Nick Aldis on SmackDown. I don't know where that's going to go. I was of the thought that he may end up getting traded, and maybe he ends up on Raw, but I could see that, they should have done one more match with him and Cody, but maybe there was a reason they didn't want it to be in Saudi, so we'll get it in Scotland maybe. I'd be fine with that.
I said that 2 weeks ago with the whole Braun Breaker thing. I'm like, maybe they trade Braun Breaker for AJ and AJ comes to Raw. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But like you said, why would they move Braun Breaker from SmackDown to Raw only to move him back to SmackDown again?
The only thing is, I mean, if you do Cody and AJ again, and what's he going to do? Go in there and lose again?
Yeah.
And then what?
Maybe Nick Aldis comes out of the managerial role and wrestles AJ. Is that a possibility?
Well, I mentioned that the other night, but remember, he's recovering from bicep tear surgery. I don't know how far along he is. I don't know how long it's been, so I don't even know if physically he'd be able to yet. But I mean, I expect him to wrestle at some point. He's going to have a match for sure. Yeah.
TK Banks, $5 super chat. Reports coming out that NXT stars will work in future TNA shows. Maybe Nick Aldis strikes a deal to send AJ Styles to work some TNA shows.
Oh, that would be something.
If this is a partnership between them, I think it's a good one. Obviously, more so for TNA because right now they're ice cold after Scott D'Amore was fired there. But listen, WWE wants to get in bed with other promotions. This is something Triple H wanted to do, and I think it's a great start for TNA.
Hey, we may get the return of Claire Lynch. You probably have no idea.
I have no idea what that is.
You have no idea. You're better off not knowing about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
David Theory with a $5 super chat. Thanks, guys, and great job tonight on the stream. Double down on Magic Mind to keep the wheels going and get some sleep. The grind is real. Yes, I love me some Magic Mind. Thank you, David. Savvy Seed with a 20 months. What's up, fellas? Any early plans for a meet and greet for Forbidden Door? Met you guys at World's End. Mets hat and would love to run it back next month. You weren't at World's End, were you?
No.
I was at World's End. I don't remember who I met there, though. I apologize. I just have a fucking terrible time remembering people's names. But Savvy, I don't think I'm doing anything for Forbidden Door. My passion for the product right now is not one where I want to go out and physically go to the shows. And I think Forbidden Door is a concept that is basically knocking on death's door right now. So not really all that excited. Amanda Nicole with a $9.99. What's up, JD? Been with you since your hilarious story about Otis. The jewelry store Otis story, yes. Glad that you have never changed. Love watching you and Solid Monster. Also, your Veer Mahan impression is one of my favorites. Thank you, Amanda. Veer Mahan is no longer with the company, so that joke is now retired. Mr. Team Bring It with a $1.99. Solid Monster, you're fucking hilarious. Great show.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Krauser with a 2. Vic Joseph. Wasn't he in AE and Booker stops him? Oh, well, did they say that, huh? I got to go back and watch.
They're having some fun with it.
Outlook card with a $1.99. Roxanne froze when she saw Jordan coming.
I would too. I think she would probably break both of us in half. Christ.
Matt McClure with a $1.99. Love TNT. Thank you, Matt. Aaron with a new membership. Thank you, Aaron.
Shout out to Aaron.
Is that all the super chats? I think so. That's everything. Look at that. And Aaron becomes a new membership. Thank you, brother. I don't know, man. That's everything. We're getting out of here. Any parting words before I hit end here and get some sleep? And you get some sleep.
I kind of have my sights set on some sleep myself. I guess I will say this, though. Like, for everybody who has been supporting, I know this is the 50th episode I've been here. Now, this is episode 4, I believe, with the both of us. But thank you all for the support. And thank you all for the kind words and the kind messages. Again, we had 3,000 rock solid here tonight. And we got a lot more planned for you in the future. A lot of good content coming up. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the love.
And thank you to Jason for being here on what was a great episode 50. If you guys want to go catch him live tomorrow night, he'll be talking AEW, as will I. And any other time that there's a wrestling show on, Jason is on. So go check him out on his YouTube channel. Link is down below for his YouTube channel and his social media. And guys, we will see you right back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Episode 51 of Tuesday Night Titans. We will see you guys next week. Have a good night.